Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 19th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. LaPlante.
Present.
Mr. Screbutenis.
Here.
Mr. Khan.
Here.
Mr. McPartland.
Here.
Mr. Darpino.
Here.
Ms. Shenfield.
Here.
Ms. Gold.
Present.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. Okay, thank you, Mr. Henry. And for the record, Mr. Oster is absent, excused tonight. Thank you. So first, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from the October 5th, 2020 that were included in our packet. And before we have a motion on, I just like to, Laura brought to my attention, and I did see that also, that there was an email from Mr. Fromowitz that was supposed to be attached. It wasn't attached. We all have a copy of that, and Laura states that she will attach it on the final version of the minutes to be, filed. So do I have a motion to accept the October 5th, 2020 meeting minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion moved by Mr. Khan for acceptance. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's seconded by Mr. McPartland. Any discussion, modifications, changes at all? I have none.
Well, Kevin, the only other thing is Dan noted we spelled Bruce Boss name wrong. So we would just make the name right in the final version of the minutes too.
Okay, so correct spelling of a name, and we'll have the attachment added to the final documentation. Does anybody else have any other concerns regarding the minutes? Seeing no one, let's, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as slightly modified with those couple additions, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone
I'm
opposed?
going to abstain. I'm going to abstain just because I was away that day.
Okay, thank you. We have one abstention, Ms. Shenfield, and everybody else signified approval. Any other concerns? All right, then we'll approve the October 5, 2020 meeting minutes. Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move right to privilege of the floor. I know Laura's got some letters and possibly some people in queue to speak, so Laura, I'll let you take it from here.
Having problems unmuting myself. Okay, so I wanted to note for the record that we received a comment from Constance Clark and Alan Clark of 142 Killarney Drive quite a while back. I just wasn't 100% clear if this was for privilege of the floor. And they were just concerned that the open space along the west side of Shannon Boulevard that has been enjoyed by Avon Crest North homeowners is under plans to be developed. Niskayuna prides itself in setting aside open space and forever wildlands in neighborhoods, preserving a balance between development and nature. And our taxes pay for this protection of our neighborhoods. The beautiful Leisha Creek runs through the area in question, flowing into the Leisha Preserve. Should you go onto the Leisha Creek site, you will see nearly 200 photos of the extraordinary wonder that is this jewel of our town. These natural woodlands are home to many natural species of plants and animals. We are strongly opposed to the rezoning of this property that would allow for the overdevelopment of the desirable open space. And then I had another very similar comment from Mary Lou Terenzio. Sorry, hold on. And she also wrote that she was concerned by the sale of the parcel of land and our development to the developer with the intent of building 3 new homes in what is now green space that has been enjoyed by residents since the development began. She's concerned that it would detract from the beauty and tranquility of the green space and would decrease the property values of those who live there. There are several such green spaces throughout the development, and she fears that once development begins, it will continue to infringe on the properties and green spaces that they so enjoy. So I just wanted to make sure that those comments are noted for the record. And then I do have a letter to read from Nancy and Dimitri Grivas, which was sent today. I did forward it to you in your email. It's there. It says, "Dear Laura Robertson, planner and esteemed member of the planning board of the town of Niskayuna, The purpose of this letter is to share our strong concerns about the proposed development along Shannon Boulevard and to provide this town with additional relevant information from past interactions on the subject of open space with the previous town planner and planning board. We are in full support of the positions previously expressed by Mr. Daniel Fromowitz, as well as by more than 40 other residents. Our names are Nancy and Dimitri Grivas, and we reside at 1015 Shannon Boulevard, Niskayuna. Our house is at a bend of Shannon Boulevard in the immediate vicinity of the proposed development and directly impacted by the latter. Specifically, we are the first house next to the open space adjacent to a lot designated in the builder's proposed plan as lot number 1. We wish to also let you know that we are among the original residents of the Avon Crest North development, having built our house in 1990, and that we have enjoyed tremendously living in what has been described as wooded area of forever wild and unbuildable. We seem to be facing a serious issue with respect to a decision made by the town of Niskayuna to transfer ownership of a portion of the open space along the west side of Shannon Boulevard to a private owner sometime in the past. Residents adjacent to this property were never notified by the town about this transaction, and there was no public meeting or any discussion with the public about such a property transfer. This portion of the open space appears to have been subsequently included in a property sold to the present developer, who proposes to build 4 additional houses in an area that includes a portion of the open space previously considered as unbuildable. Relevant supporting information is summarized below. In 1990, we met with the then town planner, Ms. Diane Sturman, to discuss a possible acquisition by us of a portion of a open space adjacent to our lot. The rationale for this request is described in detail by Ms. Sturman in a memorandum to the town board dated November 6, 1990, under the subject residence request. In a letter dated November 26, 1990, the town planner stated
I'm
that...
sorry, Laura, that was in a memorandum to the planning board.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, memorandum to the planning board dated November 6, 1990, under the subject residence request. In a letter dated November 26, 1990, the town planner stated that at its meeting held on November 19, 1990, the board was unanimous in its determination that the open space in this subdivision should not be reduced and that that open space should be maintained as originally described. Subsequently, in a letter dated February 13, 1991, the town planner stated, among other topics, that the open space in Avon Crest North has been placed in a park district. Maintenance of the park district is performed by the town and paid for by fees assessed against the property owners in the Avon Crest North. Also included in the letter was a copy of the relevant sections of the town law dealing with special districts, specifically Article 12 of Consolidated Law Service that describes the topics of district and special improvements. Copies of the above correspondence must be in the town files, but we will gladly provide them if needed. We kindly request that the town board takes into consideration the above information in addressing the issues of open space and possibly consider inviting the concerned residents to a special meeting to discuss the proposed development plan. Respectfully, Nancy and Dimitri Grivas, 1015 Shannon Boulevard, and then I forwarded on to the planning board and the town board. And then I just got one last comment I just received probably about 10 minutes ago, and that's from Matthew Bramble, and he writes, as a resident of Villa Del Mar and given the concerns of my neighbors recently with the county's plans for our street that were eventually overturned, I would like to ask the town planning board to consider the needs of our block in association with the upgrades in this corridor as well as this new restaurant. Our street needs protection from through traffic, and this can be achieved rather easily by blocking the southbound lane of Villa Del Mar at the corner of Knott Street, which would prevent traffic from coming south into our neighborhood. We presented a plan for this while challenging the county's now abandoned plans for reconfiguring the co-op parking lot. Blocking southbound traffic from entering our street could be done very inexpensively, would have almost no effect on the surrounding streets, except to prevent through traffic from using our street instead of Balltown, and it would allow emergency vehicles full access to our street. I would be happy to share these plans upon request, though all on our town board saw these plans previously. I would like to state my solid opposition to any changes in the types of businesses in this corridor until an adequate solution is found to protect our street, home of dozens of children, from the potential of any increase in traffic. I believe my personal opposition at this time to be an easy remedy, though I would like to know more generally about what is planned. So I believe that's all I have to read. And I have noted that the first one I have that wish to speak is Jason. you like
Yeah,
to?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hi. My name is Jason Conti. I reside with Jennifer Tao at 1006 Shannon Boulevard, directly across from the development that's occurring. And I just wanted to take a few moments to express my family's concerns over the development of the property in Avon Crest North. So like all of our neighbors, Jen purchased this house under the impression the area across the street was forever wild and could not be developed. But unlike most of our neighbors, the area when we got it, it was in 2013. So we actually had a deed for sale that was presented to us that actually indicates that area as forever wild and as part of a park. So our concern is certainly there was ample time for the sale to be discovered in between the time the properties were inadvertently sold in the early 90s and when she purchased the home in 2013. So the last record I saw when I looked at Zillow for, the actual house showed a sale back in the 90s for less than $1,000. So whether that's accurate or not, the lack of disclosure to the development's other residents seems out of the norm. And I had hoped that we would review that before proceeding. It's our strong preference that the land not be further developed and that this sale from the early 90s go through the appropriate reviews and considerations that it wasn't given then. However, if it has been settled that the developer is clear to move forward with the land, then we'd like to propose two alternatives that our family would find more amenable and maybe better received by the community. As one of the 5 properties that is directly adjacent to the development and the highest on the hill, our view is the most impacted. We're going to lose a lot of trees. We're losing them already today. It seems like they're doing quite a bit of work, and we've seen a lot go down in the next little bit. So we share the concerns brought forth by our neighbors, Daniel and Elisa Fromwitz, regarding not only the change in scenery, but the effect on the resale value. Avon North properties average 140 feet or above in frontage. So the proposed 3 additional properties are around 100 feet wide. So certainly less appealing in a neighborhood that hasn't seen 4 of its top tier properties go for sale in 6 months to over a year. So the additional of a lower stature of home isn't going to help. I've seen the builder's work. It's beautiful. I trust he will do a fantastic job. We would just ask that he only consider adding 2 homes on Shannon Boulevard instead of 3, capturing a higher price point and bringing the development more in line aesthetically with the properties immediately surrounding it in the neighborhood. My second suggestion would require a little more work on the part of the builder, but may be the best solution in the end for all parties. If he would consider adding an inlet road on the west side of the property on Route 7, the builder could flip the 3 homes to face west and place the driveways off of that. This suggestion makes the wooded area on Shannon Boulevard, which would require significantly less terraforming as a result, less of a problem as it can be preserved as their wooded backyards, giving a sense of separation from the rest of Avon Crest North. The Shannon Boulevard homes would maintain as much of the wooded view as possible, and the new homes would have a higher potential sale value since they too would now have the same forever wild view of the Lisha Kill preserve that we were all assured of. If the west side of the property, there's another area that Dan called the road to nowhere, that could be used as an inlet. That might require an easement on this part of the city, but that'd be something if the west side of the property is too small to consider as well. If the west side of the property or the road to nowhere are not available, I think the largest property may still provide enough room to create this shared access. It would make this turnoff similar to other that already exist. There's at least 3 of them in the neighborhood where you can kind of turn off of Shannon and you're a small cul-de-sac or access road that provides access to those other homes. Wanted to thank you all for taking the time to read this email and consider or listen to me right now. We're excited to see the existing home on the property come back to life. But however, we're sorely disappointed to see the magical woods that our son has wondered at since he was old enough to look out the window, searching for Bigfoots and Gruffalos, disappear today and soon be replaced by driveways. So I'm hoping that until we can appropriately review this 1990 mysterious inadvertent transfer and decide what's going on, that maybe work will stop there before we lose anything else. But it seems like it's progressing apace, and I just ask for your consideration in that. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. The next person I noted that wanted to speak was Dan Fromowitz. Dan, would you like to go?
Yes, thank you very much. Uniskina Town Planning Board and guests and Mr. Bizoin. I'm Daniel Fromowitz, residing at 1010 Shannon Boulevard. At the October 5th meeting, I used privilege of the floor to express concern and objection to the subdivision plan at the corner of Shannon Boulevard and Route 7, both in a letter emailed on September 23rd and with new statements from October 5th. I was representing myself and the opinions of at least 40 families in the area of the Avon Crest North development. I or the town planner can provide those concerns in written form to anyone who wishes. I would now like to mention some additional causes for objection. I will also list some new potential solutions, in part based on Mr. Bezoin's first plan. All of these new items I will send to the town plan after this meeting to forward to the rest of the planning board, the town board, and Mr. Bezoin. In the last meeting, I showed how open space in Avon Crest North was documented to be along the entire west side of Shannon Boulevard from Route 7 down to the Bend. This was documented in the original subdivision map on record with the county and town, in addition to information provided by the original builder. Based on research performed just before and mentioned at the previous meeting on October 5th, the original builder said he inadvertently sold the land to the owner of the 1909 house at 2627 Schenectady Road. My own theory as a possible explanation is that the original builder acquired this open space to get home sales, and when he was done building, he intentionally gave the land back. At the previous meeting, it was stated that a public hearing around 1991, I would guess, was held to approve swapping the open space along most of the length of the western edge of Shannon Boulevard with an extension of the open space at the bend in the road. I question if the public hearing was legal. The hearing was needed because the town knew that the land was supposed to be open space for Avon Crest North residents. The town also knew that the original Shannon Boulevard homeowners bought their plats knowing that they would have a wooded area nearby or even right across the street. If not for the open space along Shannon Boulevard being part of Avon Crest North, the town would not have needed a hearing to approve a land sale or transfer. Here is why I question if the hearing was legal. Presumably then, as is the case now, if a public hearing is needed to involve a change like this, the nearby residents had a right to be notified so they would have reasonable awareness of the situation. That would be true in this case where the open space was specifically for Avon Crest North residents. The deed for the new open space, of which I have a copy, lists in a restriction that the conveyance is made to add green area and to assist with the final subdivision approval for Avon Crest North Section 1. However, most homes in Section 1 were already sold by that time, and no one in Avon Crest North Section 1 was notified of the hearing. We have many original owners still living right nearby the open space that was transferred, and I still know other original owners who moved away. These homeowners were here before the open space was transferred. None of them remember being notified, but they all remember the original open space. Although the original and newly added open spaces were nearly the same area, the land swap was by no means an even trade. A key purpose to having the thin open strip along Shannon Boulevard was to prevent future development and have a beautiful natural entrance to Avon Crest North. However, I believe my solutions will benefit everyone. Besides the natural views of the neighborhood, the land at the northern part of the site, in original lots 1, 2, and 3, has been heavily used by neighborhood and area residents. The use borders on adverse possession rights for the neighborhood. This is because in the 30 years of use by the neighborhood without permission of the owner of the 1909 house, the owner never attempted to stop trespassers. Moreover, the town has been mowing all the grass along the western edge of Shannon Boulevard for 30 years under a claim of right to the land. It was a town mowing, and upkeep was thus being paid for by neighborhood and town residents. Again, I believe my solutions will effectively address this while still being beneficial for Mr. Bezoin. As an aside, the wooded area of the project site is directly across from my house, among others. The wooded area is important enough that it actually helps set the direction of my daughter's life. Having the woods right here was a key reason that she became interested in the environment, and now she majors in natural resources management at an environmental college. The last new issue I would like to bring up is the issue of drainage in the area, especially important given the clay soil in the neighborhood. The house at 1002 Shannon Boulevard, which also borders Route 7 and is across the street from the 1909 house, was the last home built in the neighborhood. When it was built around 2001, the town required the owner to put in a drainage ditch along his driveway. A few years later, the owner, who sold the home years ago, decided to fill in the ditch. After filling it in, the next house down Shannon Boulevard experienced basement floods after never having flooded before. The home after that, which is mine, frequently had a river flowing across the lawn during heavy rains, after never having a river like that in the same amount of rain. The next home after that started to experience flooding lawns, and running from that flooding affected even the next house. This is all due to the first house in Shannon Boulevard filling in their required drainage ditch, causing flooding to all the remaining homes at lower elevations. After being made aware of this, the town did not want to tell the owner to restore his mandated drainage ditch. I'm afraid of even more flooding for me and several of my neighbors if land is disturbed and graded along Shannon Boulevard in lots 1 through 4, especially with the builder's second plan that keeps all his development at a land conservation zone and puts homes closer to Shannon Boulevard. My neighbors and I believe that thorough environmental and tree council reviews need to be performed before any trees are removed from the project site. As my neighbor just mentioned, I know a few have been removed already. This includes review by the Niskayuna Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation Committee. These reviews are needed due to all the wildlife in the area, as explained at the previous meeting, the age and size of many trees, and the steep slopes in the project site, including a ravine along the north edge of Lot 1. We neighbors would also like to see a copy of the SEQR, State Environmental Quality Review, when all sections are filled out. If it turns out the development is acceptable for all reviews, I believe I have a solution that would be agreeable to everyone. This solution would involve Mr. Bezoin effectively restoring much of the open space that Avon Crest residents believe was taken from him inappropriately, while still having him build most of what he originally intended, with more sellable land area than in his amended plan tonight. I very much appreciate that at the last planning and zoning meeting, Mr. Bezoin suggested that to help preserve access to the Leishkill and the Leishkill natural area, he might leave Lot 5 open and might leave open the western, i.e. Leishkill side of lots 1 through 3. This is similar to what is now evident in his amended plan in tonight's agenda. I can also appreciate this from the current assessed value of the land. From the 2020 town assessment roll, the land portion of the 4-acre project site is assessed just under $60,000. This works out to just under $15,000 per acre, which is less than 7 cents per dollar of my land assessment per acre right across the street. Of course, potential future value of the land is different, but I know Mr. Bezoin would not be losing much in sunk costs for his past offer to donate one of his lots. So now I will finally describe my suggestions that I believe will make everyone happy. These are 6 suggestions that work together to address multiple concerns. I have all my suggestions shown on the site plan at the end of these comments that I'll provide, and I'll show live to you. I do not intend any disrespect to Mr. Bezoin if it looks like I try to do the job of his company associates. I'm simply highly motivated because of the potential loss of the natural view for myself and my neighbors and the potential loss of value of our existing homes. There are many benefits to each suggestion, including benefits to the builder. One of my suggestions addresses the LC land conservation zoning issue, and I'll save that for the end. What my current suggestions do is attempt to maintain much of the wooded area visible from the roads, while actually giving Mr. Bezoin more land to sell to future homeowners than in his second plan in tonight's agenda. Some of these suggestions require approval through the Zoning Board of Appeals. After speaking with a few neighbors about these ideas, I believe the community of the Avon Crest North area would support Mr. Bezoin's appeals if he could preserve much of the view along Shannon Boulevard and along Route 7. Thus, my suggestions are based on Mr. Bezoin's original plan. Again, I'll address the land conservation issues later. Since Mr. Bezoin was open to leaving Lot 5 free and letting it be used by the town, suggestion 1 is that I recommend leaving Lot 1 open instead, donating Lot 1 to the town. This is a lot at the northern end of the site, and I will attempt to present that now.
So then if you see that in your present now, you actually have to click on the screen that looks like your computer screen, and then you can hit the share button. Do you see that?
Okay.
Or like select the monitor and then hit share.
I was selecting a window, which worked in my test run, but I don't see my window up. All right, I will just try to share my screen, and that should work, I believe. Sorry about the delay right here. All right, I'm presenting my entire screen. I'm going to swap things. All right, are you able to see the site map?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear everyone. Okay, thank you. All right, so this is the site map. I have a picture of this at the end. Just for reference, here's Shannon Boulevard. There's Route 7. I borrowed this from Mr. Bezoin's first plan. Here's the bend in Shannon Boulevard. And here's a Leisure natural area. Here's existing open space. And my first proposal was to leave this lot untouched. In this suggestion, the lot 1, lot 2 boundary right here could be moved slightly further north so that lot 2 is a little larger than first planned, so that not quite the original size of lot 1 is donated. This suggestion has 5 benefits. Benefit 1, this retains some of the wooded area that kids like to explore from Shannon Boulevard. Benefit 2, this leaves a natural entrance to the Leisure natural area that is both wider than we have now and wider than in Mr. Bezoin's new plans. There's no need to build a parking area for access to the Leisure natural area. Those who want to access the area from this location could continue to do so by walking over. Benefit 3, leaving lot 1 open helps reduce some of the environmental concerns, since that lot is closest to both the Leisure natural area and the gully that flows into the Leisure. Benefit 4, lot 1 is some of the steepest slopes and I believe some of the largest trees on the site, and thus would be one of the most difficult and costliest sites to develop of the original 5 lots. Benefit 5, leaving all or part of lot 1 open would satisfy the development requirement of having some open space rather than the alternative of paying a fee. There are many valuable houses in the area that are nicely hidden in the woods, including houses on the lower half of nearby Mohawk Road and on Route 7. Even in Avon Crest North itself, a couple of homes are hidden back. One home is barely visible from the road. The second suggestion is to build lots and lawns on the west side of the lots, leaving trees untouched close to Shannon Boulevard. And I'll show you that. My suggestion is to have houses on the west side. This suggestion has 7 benefits. Benefit 1, this allows the new owners of lots 2 and 3 to have privacy similar to many homes nearby Avon Crest North. Benefit 2, this would save the builder much of the tree removal and land grading or backfilling by avoiding most of the steep and ridged areas and still have desirable properties. A key customer base to homes with large lawns is families with young children. However, most parents would not want a property that nearby has a steep slopes that lead to the Leisure, which are dangerous to young children. So many children who would want to buy in lots 2 and 3 are people who do not have a need for a large lawn, and thus Mr. Bezoin could lower expenses for tree removal and grading. If all the trees were removed and the land graded or backfilled, there'd be a steeply sloped lawn, which is not very useful. Having lawns only on the west side of the lots would still leave around the same total space that I have across the street. Benefit 3, lots 2 and 3, being far up the hill without many trees west of them, would have nice sunset views. Good selling point. Benefit 4, being on the west side prevents drainage problems onto neighbors' properties, again because of much of the steep land would be untouched. Benefit 5, the benefit gained in concert with my first suggestion of not developing lot 1 is that the issues of drainage into the gully and of working with some of the steepest slopes of the entire site are largely avoided. Benefit 6, even when it has not rained recently, the sump pump in my basement right across the street frequently turns on. With Mr. Bezoin building only on the west side of the lot, the higher elevation there would keep his homes far enough above the water table. Benefit 7, building further away building further away keeps down tree cutting construction noises for neighbors. Mr. Bezoin offered originally to leave the western edge, i.e. Leisure side of lots 1 through 3 undeveloped. Suggestion 3 is to instead leave the Shannon Boulevard side of lots 2 through 4 undeveloped, which is possible given suggestion 2 of having homes on the west side of the lots. Again, I'll address land conservation zoning later, and I will show this now. So at the bottom, leaving this side undeveloped. In lots 2 and 3, this would leave about 100 feet of trees along the east side of the lots or west edge of Shannon Boulevard, in addition to the existing grassy area joining the street right at the bottom here. In Lot 4, this would mean leaving the existing trees and steep slopes. A few have been removed today, most are still there. This suggestion has 6 benefits. Benefit 1, this keeps most of the original open space along Shannon Boulevard that originally Van Crest North residents were promised and was moved, I believe, without proper notification. Benefit 2, this allows the homes on lots 2 and 3 to be kept further from Shannon Boulevard, preserving more of the natural view for existing neighbors and retaining privacy for lots 2 and 3. There may be no change to lot 4 anyway because it already has driveway access and there's nearly a 100% grade along part of Shannon Boulevard. Keeping that 100% grade in place also helps retain some privacy for lot 4, as Shannon Boulevard next to lot 4 is a common place for Niskuna Police and Postal Service trucks to park. Benefit 3, in lots 2 through 4, the east side is some of the roughest terrain. Leaving this area as is would help alleviate environmental concerns. Benefit 4, leaving the roughest terrain undeveloped would likely lower construction costs, as mentioned before. Benefit 5, with houses on the west side of lots 2 through 4, the land right along Shannon Boulevard would not be very useful to the new lots, except for possible driveway access, so there would not be a need to grade the land. Future homeowners would also appreciate the privacy of the trees, similarly to some other homes in Mohawk Road and Route 7, and also in our development. Benefit 6, if Mr. Bezoin decided to donate the thin grassy strip along Shannon Boulevard to the town would continue mowing it as they have done for 30 years, leaving less work for the future occupants of lots 2 through 4. This could be a positive selling point for future homeowners. Suggestion 4 is to have lots 2, 3, and 5 share a single driveway in the west side of the project site. An alternative less preferable to existing neighbors is to have lots 2 and 3 share a single driveway from Shannon Boulevard, where they cut down the trees just large enough for the driveway. And I'll show that now. So the first suggestion, which has been mentioned by my neighbor, is to possibly have a driveway on the west side of the lot, joining the houses. And another alternative, which I'm proposing, our second preference, I know the builder doesn't have to go with anything we say, but our second preference would be to have a driveway, a single one for these 2 houses, lots 2 and 3, coming through cut out on the trees. Let's see. Yeah, several homes in the town actually have this type of driveway. One tree-lined hidden driveway nearby on Route 7 actually serves 3 homes, and I enjoy driving on it when I get to do so. This suggestion has 2 benefits. Benefit 1, having a single driveway serving lots 2, 3, and 5, and not developing lot 1, would leave the view of the original space and trees not too much different from what it has been. This would benefit the current homeowners and give more privacy to future homeowners for lots 2 and 3. Benefit 2, having a single driveway serving these lots would also be less costly for Mr. Bezoin because of less tree removal and less grading. Suggestion 5 is to build the lot 5 house far enough from Route 7 to leave in place many of the trees close to Route 7. Show that right now. There are actually trees along the lot here, and there are some in this green zone right here. And my suggestion for leaving these trees here, there are 2 benefits. Benefit 1, hardly any homeowner would choose a view of a 5-lane highway right nearby their home. When the house in Lot 4 was built in 1909, Troy-Schenectady Road was a dirt road with 2 sets of trolley tracks and hardly any traffic. Keeping a row of trees helps prevent the sight and sounds of the present-day highway. The house on the other corner of Shannon Boulevard and Route 7, the one at 1002 Shannon Boulevard, has a row of trees planted along Route 7 to help block the view and sounds of the highway. This is because the original owners of that house did not want a nearby Route 7 view either. Blocking the highway view and sounds would likely raise the Lot 5 selling price for Mr. Bezoin if he keeps Lot 5 in his plans. Benefit 2, keeping the trees close to Route 7 helps preserve the natural look of the town. My final suggestion, suggestion 6, is to adjust the zoning of all lots except 7, and I'll put that right here, and adjust the deeds of lots 2 to 4 to account for LC land conservation lost at the west side of the site. If Mr. Bezoin can plan to keep all or almost all the existing trees in the 100 feet of woods close to Shannon Boulevard along the road length, I personally would be happy to speak in favor of his appeals to the Zoning Board of Appeals to get the zoning changed or variances approved for his lots to build on the west side. Many other residents would also be in favor, as I spoke to several residents in the last few days who said they prefer keeping the trees nearby Shannon Boulevard with construction on the west side of the site. I would even volunteer to help Mr. Bezoin with any of that process I'm capable of, if it meant we could save most or all the trees near Shannon Boulevard. In particular, with the first part of suggestion 6, I believe most or all of lot 1 could be made open space for the town. That area could even be rezoned as LC land conservation. The second part of suggestion 6 is to place restrictions on the future deeds for lots 2, 3, and 4, so that all trees within 120 feet of Shannon Boulevard would remain, aside from possible driveway access. This would not be an issue for future homeowners of lots 2 through 4 because they would appreciate the privacy and they likely would not want to incur the expense of removing trees anyway. The two benefits of suggestion 6 are, benefit 1, keeping a significant amount of natural space for the benefit of neighbors and wildlife, and benefit 2, allowing Mr. Bezoin to have a larger lot 2 and lot 3 than planned in tonight's agenda. In summary, first and foremost, the Avon Crest North area neighbors strongly believe that the natural area should remain around the neighborhood, as was promised and noted in the literature when they bought their homes. There was no targeted notice given to the nearby residents of any meeting to discuss the open space strip, even though the town knew of and approved the original plans for the Avon Crest North subdivision residents to have this space specifically along the length of Shannon Boulevard. We also firmly believe that the full environmental impact statements and tree council evaluations should be performed. The land is too important to the neighborhood. If the town will not correct its past mistake, and if the environmental concerns are addressed, then I believe that my suggestions would be very beneficial. I hope that Mr. Bezoin will consider them, including my offer to gladly support him in the zoning appeals process if he can keep all or almost all the existing trees within 120 feet of Shannon Boulevard. Future homeowners of Bezoin properties would get their own private view. Mr. Bezoin would end up with more sellable land area than in his amended plan in tonight's agenda. Existing homeowners would benefit by retaining much of their current views and retain their higher home values. As I mentioned, I will send these comments to the town planning department after this meeting to forward along. Anyone is welcome to get a copy of them from them or from me. And I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for your hard work on all that. Appreciate it.
Okay. So the next person that I know of that wanted to speak is Tara Peterson. Tara, would you like to go? You are muted if you're trying to speak. Tara Peterson. We can come back if she's I'll send her an email. And then Art, I wasn't sure if you were just listening or you wanted to speak tonight. Art Pascarello, are you interested in speaking? Okay, I'll follow up with those 2 people. I know there's a whole lot of other people on the line too, Kevin. I'll turn it over to you to see if there's anybody else who wants to speak.
Yeah, let's, is there anybody else that wants to speak? I mean, a lot of people logged on, and more than welcome to speak. We'll be glad to listen to what you have to say.
I just unmuted myself. My name is Karen Berry. I was actually emailing Laura because I've never been on. Do I have to email beforehand, or are you allowed to just speak?
Privilege of the floor. Just please just state your name and address for the record and let us know what you have to say.
All right. So it's Karen Berry, and I reside at 2336 Cayuga Road in Niskayuna. I'm touching upon something that's not on the agenda tonight. I am adjacent to the small mobile gas station on the corner. Harry has done various things at this business that has adversely and negatively impacted many of us in the neighborhood and throughout the community at large. But what concerns me greater is that he's done most of these things outside of what the business has been grandfathered in to do. And I know I can't speak for all of my neighbors, but we have an increasing concern about what's happening at the mobile station. We understand that there were dead trees that needed to be cleared, but now it appears that the land is being prepared for something. And Harry has had interest in this past 10 years And as this is a residential property, I'm concerned how any significant changes could have on Route 7 corridor as well as the surrounding neighborhoods.
Okay.
I'm done. So
Okay, well, thank you for your comments, and we'll talk some more about that later on, okay? Thank you.
okay.
Anybody else wishing to be heard regarding on privilege of the floor? Make sure we give everybody an opportunity, and pause 1 second here.
Yes, it's Leslie Gold. I just wanted to note the passing of our former chairman, William Hendricks. Bill served the town very well, and I noted in yesterday's Times Union that he has passed.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Gold, for bringing it up. And that's actually something I was going to bring up later on during commission business. But since you brought up, Mr. Hendricks served 7 years on the board. He was my predecessor as chairman. He recently passed away October 12th at the age of 76. He was living in Richmond, Virginia at the time. A former supervisor, Luke Smith, appointed him to chairman, and he served a full term. So I'd like to send our condolences out to the family. And thank you, Leslie, for bringing that up. We appreciate it. Anybody else for privilege of the floor? Okay, hearing no one not for privilege of the floor, we'll carry on with our business, and we'll try to address some of these things later on during reports or discussion. Next up is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move right to new business. One item under new business, and that's resolution 2020-32, resolution for site plan approval for 1335 Balltown Road. That's Wiggles and Giggles Early Learning Center. The resolution has been posted on the website. That I'll summarize. Resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves this site plan and tenant change with the following conditions. 1, facade and landscape improvements to the property are strongly encouraged by the Planning Board are to be implemented by the property owner as time and budget allows in 2021. Okay, that's it for the resolution for this child care at 1335 Balltown. Do I have a motion for approval for the resolution?
So moved, Chairman.
Okay, move for approval by Mr. Laflamme. Thank you. Do I have a second? And I will second that.
Okay, I'll second it. Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Khan, seconded by Mr. Khan. Thank you. And discussion. I think it was Mr. Oster that volunteered for the project. I know Mr. Laflamme has some experience here too, so thank you, Chris. We did receive an email with some specifics tonight regarding expected staffing, hours of operation, et cetera, and a commitment from the building owner that along the lines of our condition that right now, we're looking to move this along quickly so that the new tenant can get up and running. But we have pretty much have a commitment and captured in on our condition to improve the property. I believe they'll be looking at some signage in the future, so maybe when we work on the signage, it would be a good opportunity at that point in time to further discuss landscaping and facade improvements also. So I think we'll have another opportunity there. Any questions or concerns or comments? Anything from the applicant before we vote that they'd like to add? Applicant or a representative of the applicant?
Well, this is John Samatolsky, the owner of the building, and we just wanted to say thank you. I believe Ja Rochelle is participating by phone. So how would she be able to speak, Laura, if she wanted to?
She has to press *6.
All right. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I do look forward to bringing forward the sign proposal and making the other improvements to the property, over the course of the next year.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Ja Rochelle Brown. I'm sorry, I was pressing *7 the whole time. I apologize. And thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. And like I said, we understand the urgency here, so we're moving it along tonight, and we'll follow up with any site improvements as stated. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Kevin, did we just want to state for the record, I know some of you aren't always able to check your emails prior to the meeting, but we did get kind of a last minute email that just addressed the outstanding questions we had at the last meeting, which was like maximum number of kids may never get there is 30. And that's about what the Niskuna co-op had. And I think they said, and I can pull it up here, Kevin, if you want me to, the maximum number of parking spaces are 36, I think. And so that leaves 2 handicap spaces and 12 spaces for visitors, which would include parent pickup and drop-offs. And they're going to coordinate their drop-off times with Montessori so that that's plenty of spaces.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. All right. Hearing no one else, then Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Scrabby-Tennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartland,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. The resolution is passed, and good luck on the business, and we'll look forward to working with you on signage and updates to the site at a later point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Good night.
You're welcome. All right, so that's it for new business. We have some discussion items tonight. First up being the 2627 Troy Road subdivision sketch plan application. Mr. McPartland's agreed to be the project lead. I just first like to say thank you to the residents for their hard work and suggestions there. I know that's not easy, and appreciate that. And we do take it seriously, your submittals, but of course we have to respect the wishes of the applicant also. One of the things is that, we want to make sure we go forward appropriately also. And I'm not sure if legal, Ms. Kim's on tonight, is prepared to talk about the findings or suggestions, or maybe we need to do more research. But obviously we want to make sure that we handle this appropriately as a planning board. I know that one of the speakers tonight during Privilege of the Floor mentioned that they also had some other memos. I'm not sure. I know Laura and Mr. Henry, Ms. Robertson, Mr. Henry spent quite a significant time going through the files, and maybe there's more there, or maybe they haven't had a chance to finish looking through that, but it might be helpful if the residents have any memos to send them on, scan them in or whatever, and provide those to the planning office. That would also be helpful. Are we, Ms. Kim, do we need any legal input tonight?
Well, so yeah, I mean, so a couple of things. So I know we had received an email about what the legal ramifications would be if the town failed to properly notice a public hearing back when it originally conveyed this land. I looked into it, and so when town conveys land, there's no public hearing requirement. It's subject to something called a permissive referendum, which is publishment in the newspaper 10 days after adoption. And so, yep, are you there?
Yeah, the town did not convey this land to the developer.
So there was no transfer or conveyance of land.
The town did not own this. The developer, Hodorowski, conveyed the land to the Kriegers, and the land was initially shown on the subdivision plan as open space. And then when the town realized that the developer had conveyed the open space land to the Kriegers, then they went through a process to decide what to do about the fact that they had conveyed land that was designated as open space in the initial plat. And then they went through a process and then recorded an amended plat that showed the changes to the open space.
So
I heard that from a couple people who are speaking too, and I just want to do as a point of clarification, the town did not convey this land.
So the town never owned this land. There was no conveyance. I mean, so a public hearing would never have been really required in the first place, right? I mean, I know that's correct. So no public hearing would have been required, but I mean, to the extent to which I noticed someone during Privilege of the Floor said that they have a copy of a deed where it did indicate something about Forever Wild. I know that that's kind of a complicating matter. So yeah, while I was prepared to speak on this issue, with that fact coming up that Laura just brought up, it's no longer kind of relevant what I was about to say. I mean, in terms of whether or not we can move forward with this, I mean, it would be something that would be subject to an Article 78 hearing. So, I mean, I don't think that, we're looking to try to get litigation, but the statute of limitations would have already kind of passed on this. You only have 4 months from the date of the decision that you're challenging. But I would find it interesting to see the deed that was mentioned during privilege of the floor, indicating that something was forever wild, and just to confirm that this isn't. Oh, I mean, Laura, can you confirm that this is not open space? I mean, this is not parkland. This is not any of the types of designations that are prohibited from being transferred, like the.
Yeah, I can confirm that. So, and we talked about this at the last meeting. The town had, essentially recorded a subdivision that showed that triangle. We brought up the screen last time. Clark did a lot of the research. The triangle that went along Shannon Boulevard was originally the area of open space, but this was a phased development. It was 4 phases. Avon Crest North has 4 phases, and the full parkland wasn't dedicated to the town until the completion of phase 4. And so there was quite a few years that passed between the initial phase 1, which would have been Shannon Boulevard. Phase 2 was like Dublin, and I think phase 4 was Killarney, was finally the townhomes, and they actually changed that substantially from the original kind of overall planned unit development. And so that did go back to the town board. They changed a couple of the ways that the lot lines work. They removed some cul-de-sacs, and then they changed the open space. And but by the time that the town actually took the deed for the open space, by the time it actually formed the park district, it had re-recorded the subdivision lot, and the park district that was recorded and now exists does not include that original little triangle. It was swapped. 5,000 feet for 5,000 square feet was swapped.
Okay.
So the town authorized it to be changed, but in no way did the town ever sell that land.
Okay, so I mean, I guess if the straightforward question was whether or not there was a public hearing requirement, then there wouldn't have been a public hearing requirement. I guess the question now becomes whether or not this kind of mess, I'm calling it a mess. I mean, this confusing kind of turn of events that happened, how many years ago was it? 1990s? How that impacts us going forward now?
Correct.
Yeah, so Alexis, that's the same question I have. This is Genghis, and I would really request that we're a lot bit careful on this one to make sure, because I think that the expectations and the understanding that the residents there, at least the ones who were there, for me at least, that carries some weight, and I'm hoping that there's also a legal basis for that based on the intent of our town code and the residents in the neighborhood. And so understanding what their expectations were and what they thought and how that was either incorrectly communicated them or not, I think is something that's important. So I think 2 key things came up with the Grievous's letter, right? Which I should have realized the last time I asked, but now it's clear. So obviously the residents are paying some kind of a assessment relative to parkland. And
so they're in a park, like a light district? I mean, Laura, so is it a special district, like in from the budget, one of the budgets?
Yeah, they pay into Park District 9.
Yeah.
Is that Park District 9? So have we looked into whether or not that Park District 9, that money is being put towards the area in question? That's obviously would be relevant.
No, that area was not included in the formation of the Park District.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if they're not paying for it, then it's not as relevant. Yeah, but sorry.
I'm sorry. There is one technical question I have on that. There's 2 things really. What did the neighbors think they were paying for? Which piece of land? The one that was the original triangle, or the one that was substituted towards the back of what, where the bend is, right? I think that's where the new parkland is, right? And the second thing is this thing about, so we understand why someone from the town would be mowing the property. It would have to be the upkeep relative to it being a parkland, correct?
Well, the area that they mow is a very narrow strip, which technically is town land. It's within the right of way of Shannon Boulevard. Having walked the site, I can tell you that no portion of the private lands have been maintained by the town.
Again, when you say the private land, the land that's designated as parkland for which they're paying an assessment?
No,
part of their
land that is owned by Mr. Bezoin. the 3.89 acre parcel. There is town land to the north of the parcel. I didn't really pay close attention. I don't know, Laura, can you speak to what the maintenance practices are for that town parcel to the north of Mr. Bezoin's land?
Not specifically. I mean, that is open space, and there is kind of like a round circle of grass. I think that the town mows, and they probably extend their mowing along the right of way there. But I
have some personal experience with the development, and I can tell you there are lots of other open spaces that the town maintains, significant acreage elsewhere within the broader development over on, I believe, County Clare Lane near Killarney Court, near the townhomes. I would imagine that's where most of the town's parkland fees are expended.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up a map. My GIS fails. I'm sorry, but I mean, I have both subdivision maps on the computer that I can show you. But there is a substantial amount of open space in that PUD. I mean, the park district spans the entirety of that whole Avon Crest North. So there's a fair number of bits of that area that I mean.
Laura, this is Mike. I wonder, would you be able just to restate and just clarify the points you made to Alexis about the transfer and could you just re-describe that one more time just for us to digest? It'd be helpful for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to load the map, but just verbally, the developer went through their PUD approval and their kind of preliminary subdivision for all 4 phases of Avon Crest North. And in that preliminary approval, it showed a square footage of open space to be dedicated to the town of 5,000 some odd square feet that went parallel to Shannon Boulevard. So it showed that the corridor of Shannon Boulevard would be always treed. And then during the development of all 4 phases, it was over the course of several years, especially I think the 4th phase changed quite a bit. They went from having 3 cul-de-sacs to kind of an arc, and they reconfigured some of the open space up there. And during that time, Clark noted, they wrote an email. It's not the town's description inadvertently. The developer wrote an email to the town asking for forgiveness. They said that they had inadvertently transferred that open space that had been designated in the preliminary subdivision to the Kriegers. So they are now no longer the owners of it. And they were asking the town for forgiveness because they sold that land. And the town basically said, you're not forgiven. But then they said, we're not going to lose any square feet. But then they worked with the developer and the Kriegers to change that 5,000 square feet so that it was adjacent to the open space that hadn't been touched or sold. And so they made that open space bigger and squared it off. So rather than using the 5,000 square feet that was along Shannon Boulevard, they made the open space that's at the Shannon Boulevard curve slightly larger. I'm trying to pull that map up for you now. And then they re-recorded the subdivision. They re-recorded the subdivision with the new boundaries of open space. And I think we mentioned last time, because Mr. Fromwitz had material that showed the developer was marketing lots in the subdivision with the open space still being shown as the old open space that the developer himself had already sold. And so the town planner wrote him in a letter saying, you have to stop doing that. You know very well that you already sold that open space and it's not right or good that you're doing that anymore. I mean, I think the town did what it could to try and make sure that wasn't being marketed as open space any longer. But I do think that it's fair to say that people on Shannon Boulevard, because that was phase 1, and a fair number of those houses, I think, were actually built, in the late 80s or before 1992 or whenever the new plat was recorded. Some of those homes were probably built before that open space changed. But I mean, it's and I agree with you, Jengis, that it's important that their expectations, but I think that it legally changed, and arguing about whether, I mean, the recorded plat with it being changed has been recorded for almost 30 years.
Laura, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I happen to have those two deeds, subdivision maps on my screen. If you want me to share, just so you could show, and then I'll be quiet.
It's up to Kevin. I'm still trying to get him to load on my computer.
Yeah, it's okay to pull up what you have. We can take a look at it. Thank you. And just a point of information, I know that Mr. Bezoin is also online. Looked like he was earlier. I believe he's with us tonight also.
I'm here, Kevin.
Thanks, Joel.
Okay. So Dan is displaying right now. And
Yeah, so that triangle there on the
1987 is labeled as the 1987 a recorded subdivision plat, and that's showing that open space that's parallel to the Shannon Boulevard. And I mean, I can look up the records of those homes. Kind of, it's the south of that drawing. It's actually the east in real life, but those homes may have been constructed under this plat that said open space. So I think that they're, you know, for sure there was an expectation when those people bought their house. But then Dan, if you can just press that 1991 one, this was recorded after that process went through where the town was, essentially forming that park district. And like,
are you able to zoom in a little bit? Sorry to interrupt you, Laura. Can you zoom in so we can read the text of where that open space triangle is? All right. Thank you. Sorry, Laura, to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So, I mean, essentially, it says dedicated to the town of Niskayuna as a portion of road right-of-way, and it's very, very tiny, but there's a black line and then another line along the right-of-way, and it says 5.4 feet. So 5.4 feet, and that was just so that the right-of-way would be big enough per spec. So they gave, and that's not part of the lot. It went into the right-of-way when the town, you know, accepted those roads. And then if you sort of zoom back out, that little triangle that was 5,000 square feet squared off that open space that's over to the right here. Yeah. So yeah.
So in essence, correct me if I'm wrong, but in so doing, the size of the Krieger parcel and the size of the lands owned by the town of Niskayuna did not change. We just shifted the town lands to the north of the Krieger parcel as opposed to being on the east of the Krieger parcel.
That's correct.
That's correct. And then it was re-recorded, and it was included in the Parks District that, you know, the legal description of the Park District never included that open space that was originally in 1987 recorded, because they realized when they were forming that Park District that they could no longer convey that to the town of Niskayuna. They had sold it.
Laura, this is Clark. Can you pull up the drawing we showed at the last planning board meeting that showed the area that we're showing there was the area in orange, and then there was an area in yellow, which was the other property that became the open space.
Yeah, I can.
And I just want to also kind of say what Laura mentioned. That note where it says dedicated to the town of Niskayuna, that is not referring to that entire triangular piece of property there. It's referring to a thin strip, very narrow strip along Shannon Boulevard there.
Yeah, that's clear.
Okay, Dan, I'm going to take over for you. I've got the, oh, sorry, I thought I had it. It's down here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little. This is all of Clark's research that we talked about the last time, and this is upside down from the way that Dan was sharing it. Just make it a little bigger. But this orange piece is the piece that was recorded in 1987, and then this yellow piece is the piece that was recorded in 1991.
And the green, you'll notice the green goes all along the border of the orange piece. That's that strip that other note was referring to, I believe.
Yeah, the green line yes. Thank you, Clark, Laura. And thank you, Mr. Fromowitz.
And Clark and Laura, again, could you just repeat the green bordered area? Who has title to that now? Where is that? That's municipal land.
It's actually, I mean, yes, it's a park district. They're kind of like a weird quasi-government thing that is managed and owned, and all the taxes are collected by the town of Niskayuna, and the town makes the decisions. But the deed is actually, I think, incorporated as a park district, number 9. They're like this strange thing that happens in New York and nowhere else.
And just to confirm that green line doesn't preclude a driveway to be developed over it, should the developer want driveways, or if the final design would have driveways into Shannon, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Oops, I finally got this to work. No, I did not. This lot. Can you guys see this? This note. It says it's to be dedicated to the road right of way. Whoops. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It was similar to what Mr. Fromowitz had put up, right?
Well, yeah, he had the exact same thing actually.
Yeah. Yep.
So if it's dedicated as road right of way, then it's not a private strip of land that precludes driveways from accessing.
Okay, thank you, Laura, Clark, and Mr. Fromowitz. All right, so I guess I'll let Mr. McPartland says speaking for you, if you want to take it from here, and I can help out if you need it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, one thing, one important thing to note is the revision to the plan that incorporates the land conservation as a conveyance to the town. That is revision version number 3, dated October 15th. So that's the plan that's included in the packet and the latest and greatest. One important note there, we're no longer dealing with a 5-lot subdivision. It's now proposed as a 4-lot subdivision. I walked the site with Laura, Clark, Matt Yetto, as well as Mr. Bezoin, and we had someone else with us, Jessica. And we walked from Route 7 all on down north, all the way to the northern property boundary. There is quite a bit of change in grade. It's pretty impressive. Driving down or up Shannon Boulevard doesn't even give you a full appreciation for the change in grade. And certainly, as you find your way toward the westernmost property boundary, you can also appreciate the very steep change in grade down to the Leishakill from the elevation of, let's see, well, I would guess it's 60 feet at least drop off from the edge of the western edge of the LC zone to the Leishakill on the left-hand side there. Um, the property is beautiful. It's got a lot of old growth trees. The applicant made it clear his intention to limit his clearing to only, the area needed for the driveway and proposed homes on the 3 lots to be built. So it seems that there's potential to preserve a lot of that beautiful forest. It truly is beautiful. The first lot is lot number 1 is definitely one I think we will focus more on if and when we progress to the later stages of site plan review. Definitely could be challenging to figure out how to site a home on that parcel. Also, just wanted to make the planning board aware that during the course of our site visit, in kind of walking the property boundary and getting a feeling for where the northernmost point of the parcel where Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery's land, Nature Conservancy's land, Town of Niskayuna, and this parcel's land all intersect. There's some very challenging topography, at least verbally, the developer indicated wouldn't be of any use to him and could also potentially be conveyed to the town to further increase uninhabited, undeveloped land. We have also, the town has also, Laura and Clark also reached out to the Nature Conservancy, and as noted in the agenda packet, they've expressed a strong desire to have any land conveyed to them or have any access rights granted to them that the town or the applicant is willing to. It's clear also in walking the site that the land is frequented by some visitors of the Leishkill Preserve, maybe some residents of the town. Some of that possibly welcome by those respective property owners. Some of it, I'm guessing, not welcome. Certainly, there's evidence of some unwelcome activities occurring on the land, I think it is important just to highlight the topography lines do a good job of showing it. But like I said, you can't appreciate how dangerous it would be to actually walk or drive or have a front or backyard, for that matter, along the western boundary of this parcel. The drop off is steep. It's without warning, and yeah, it's a long way down. So I think with respect to the time and effort put in by some of the neighbors in vetting out some alternate layouts for access to the site for potential homes, I personally, at this point, I don't think I'd be a proponent of the applicant pursuing a variance from the ZBA to place any road access in the LC zone or any front or rear residential yards. I think it would be, everyone kind of agreed in walking the site. It'd be best to kind of keep that as forested and undeveloped land. So considering that, just looking at it from a 30,000 foot view, 3.89 acres, I would guess as much as an acre of that is LC zone. So we're looking now at a possibly still a minor subdivision, or possibly still a major subdivision, but one fewer lot, and certainly one lot that could be challenging to build on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McPartlin. And one thing, Mr. Fromwitz had some great suggestions there. And, during his presentation, during privilege of the floor, he mentioned several times the benefits. Oh, one of the hard challenges, of course, is talking about, what's the hard spots associated with that. And as Mr. McPartlin said, stated, topography, how do we handle the land conservation, whether the ZBA has the authority, does it require town board action to rezone part of that to make some of those thoughts that Mr. Fromwitz had, doable. And of course, we have the applicant who has the right to pursue the subdivision within the bounds of the town of Niskayuna ordinances and make application the way that he so chooses. I know that Joel, I don't know, I believe it's the first time he's heard this tonight, suggestions by Mr. Fromowitz. So I don't want to put Mr. Bezoin on the spot, but I think it's important to get some feedback from the applicant from what he heard tonight.
Sure. Can you hear me,
Yes, we
Kevin?
can. Thank you.
Okay, Laura, could you pop that the map back up? I just want to clarify that the last couple of days I was just clearing brush. I might have taken down several 4-inch dead trees, but no trees above 4 inches, just brush. And I put posted signs up, just like Patrick said. I mean, that is a cliff, and from the standpoint that a lot of people park on Route 7 and walk down to the Leishakill. I mean, this is a major access to the Leishakill. So I'm just protecting myself from a private landowner standpoint that I put the posted signs up, but I probably saw 6 sets of people today alone. And today wasn't the greatest day in the world. Park there and walk right past my posted signs, and I actually walked down, that well-worn path to the Leishakill and walked through the Leishakill, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's so gorgeous there. I mean, the stream's beautiful. I used to stream fish all the time as a kid, and I wanted to go get my fishing pole and drop it in and see if I could catch something. But if you see the plan now, I mean, I gave up a lot. All right. Physically, I gave up lot number 5. So this is now a minor subdivision application. All right. You can see that I'm giving a substantial portion of land to the town, or if the town doesn't want it, to the Nature Conservancy. But this is going to benefit everybody in the town. Now, the people that park at that location, they could park there legally. They can access the Leishakill. And as Patrick and Laura both mentioned, now that we walk the site, the back of lot 1, I'm going to revise that to give a U-shaped portion of land. So it's kind of cut off the whole back of lot number 1 so that we can walk down and access the town land without jumping off a cliff. The other way would be the town would have to go to Holy Redeemer and get land, but that would probably take a lot of work. So, I'm amenable to taking the back of lot 1, like we discussed, Laura, and making that a nice path down into the town land, and then the town land abuts the Nature Conservancy land. So essentially, this is a beautiful park, a legal access now to the Leishakill that benefits the whole town. All right. I feel sorry for the people along Shannon Boulevard, but when I bought this land, I got clear title, it's my land, I can develop it. I have no idea about the history. I'm sorry about the history. I would say go through the builder, the developer, and Century 21, who's no longer in existence, but, and you're well past the statute of limitations. So, everybody had the opportunity to buy this land too. So, a lot of people are talking about lot number 1. I think I heard one resident say, they'd be amenable to buying the lot. Well, I'm going to be pretty busy over on Kelt's farm. So if anybody wants to come forward now and buy lot number 1, make me an offer. Okay. So essentially put your money where your mouth is, do you want to buy that land and donate it to the town? I think I'm already donating quite a bit to the town. I already donated. I gave up a lot. It's a minor subdivision now. If somebody else wants to step forward and buy lot number 1, give me a call. My phone number is in the book, but, I think this is a great subdivision now. It's a great increase of the town's accessibility to the Glacier. It's a great park. I mean, it's, the residents that are complaining about their view along Shannon Boulevard. Well, I went to SUNY Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse too, and did wood products engineering. So I don't cut down trees unnecessarily. All right. And what I've shown here is, the houses are set back quite a ways past that gully. We're going to leave as many, obviously, as big trees as we can. We're only going to clear where the houses are. And I think Tony's put I thought he did. I thought we put the clearings on there, but essentially, we left the driveways on the sides of the lot too, so that we could leave the whole front of the house wooded. So I don't know which more I can tell people, you know what I mean? I don't clear cut subdivisions. It's a tremendous parkland to the town.
Okay.
I mean, going forward, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it, but somebody mentioned it was so major. It's not, it's a minor. So I think I only have to go through one planning board meeting and off I go. That's about all I have to say.
All right. Well, thanks, Joel. Yeah, it's a difficult situation. None of us like this situation, of course. But Joel, I know there's some suggestions. I know you didn't get a chance really to grasp those tonight, but Laura will pass those on to the planning board and be included in the minutes, and we'll make sure you get a copy of those in case there's any creative solutions that we can come up with.
Sorry to interrupt, but we did discuss those, Laura and I. And number one is the town does not allow shared driveways or keyhole lots. So, and that first suggestion with the keyhole is really a major problem. I mean, that's like double indemnity. I mean, first off, you're going to ask for a keyhole lot, and now you're going to ask to put that keyhole lot in an LC. I mean, that'd be impossible,
Yes, Joel. And that was my point when I said, we had some good suggestions there, and we heard the positives of the suggestions. The negatives are, shared driveways we discourage, keyhole lots aren't keeping with the comprehensive plan, access to, along Route 7 for a shared driveway probably wouldn't be desirable. That would require probably state approval of a curb cut, right? Or utilization of the current curb cut in a different fashion. So there are some negative things, so I understand, Joel.
That curb cut access is the town land, and I'm trying to put a curb cut in at 2482 Troy Road, and it's a huge problem. I mean, the state, for me, requires a $5,000 deposit. I have to do a perm 33, a perm 44. I have to shut one lane of Troy Road down only for a specific time. I mean, it's a huge cost. It's a huge problem. And also putting that lot 5 in there, the water's on the other side of the road. So I would have to put an easement across that current house, to access the Shannon Boulevard water, or directional bore under Route 7, which would be a huge problem. So giving up lot 5, is not bad. It's going to make the other 4 lots bigger. The lots will be nicer, and you have this beautiful parkland. I mean, I'm excited for that parkland. I mean, I'm telling you, 6 sets of people parked there today and walked right past my 2 posted signs, And
Joe, you got a question for you. Lot 1, with the steep grades there, the topo lines. what's your
Yep.
thoughts there? Would that be like a minimal yard and a walkout? Looks like the elevation's like 10-foot drop there.
I'm going to build Frank Levy Bright's house there overlooking the creek, I mean, it's doable. I mean, we're going to have a walkout, obviously, facing the gully there, or facing north. And the house will be long and skinny, all right? And I got some great plans too. And I think somebody mentioned about the impact on their houses. Well, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but if you see the plans that I have for the houses there, they're minimum $600,000. So actually, the houses are probably going to elevate the neighbors, if anything. Well, they'll definitely elevate the neighbors. They will definitely be higher than the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. So where do we go from here, I guess, is my question. I mean, we looks like we have a minor subdivision is what I see also, assuming that those lands get subdivided and conveyed to the Nature Conservancy. It sounds like that's kind of like the direction once we get some more information there. But we also have to look at sketch plan approval so that we can keep moving along. There's comments regarding trees, and of course, part of our process is always to get the tree council involved, and we'll make sure Joel gets some support from the tree council, flagging trees, and I know that's what he wants to do anyway. So I mean, that's all good. Do we need to take action tonight on a sketch plan, or is that something that we need a resolution for, Laura, in order to do a sketch plan?
Is the tree council minor subdivision?
They can,
Question.
Yeah, they get involved in all subdivisions. Kevin, you call for a resolution for sketch plan.
Yeah.
So
We need a resolution. So that's why I want to talk to Mr. McPartland. Are we, we can call for tentative resolution for sketch plan. Joel will have an opportunity to look at the information provided by Mr. Fromowitz. If things change between now and then, we can pull the resolution. Does that sound reasonable, Mr. McPartland?
Yeah, I think, as Joel mentioned, there's a slight revision to be made to change some of the lot lines for lot number 1. Some revision to the subdivision plan. And I think that's doable.
Okay.
So, may I, Chairman Walsh? This is Jenkins.
Sure, Mr. Khan.
So there's 3 points I want to make. The first one, given the point that we're at right now, and it's clear to me also that this is a minor subdivision with the conveyance of the LC land. One of the community members in privilege of the floor had mentioned at least a meeting or a discussion with members of the community there and Mr. Joel. Is that something that we could arrange for it to happen?
I guess we
Joel,
can.
that's something you're amenable to?
Is there enough new information to warrant that? I mean, we always reach out to the neighbors, and always glad to do that, either in person or video conference. I guess.
I don't think it's a meeting so much so for us. It's a meeting between the Joel and the neighbors.
Yeah, but Genghis, I don't think they fully understand what I'm giving to the town. I mean, I'm giving a beautiful
so
park.
Joel, you could answer that in a community meeting with them, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
I could walk it.
unprecedented what I'm asking for.
I mean, I could walk it just like we walked it with Laura and Patrick and Jessica and Matt, and show them that this is substantial. I'm giving the town park, a great park and a great access to the Glacier that's going to benefit the whole town, not just people walking in the neighborhood. Okay, because like I said, 6 people illegally access that today. I mean, a lot of people are going to use that.
Joe, like I mean, I got it and we heard. It's just a question of, are you up to having a meeting with the community, and is that something that can be arranged? The neighbors.
I hope that meetings with the community. Sure, I have no problem with that.
Right. And I only brought that up because it was mentioned as a request at the privilege of the floor. The second thing is, I think before we move to resolution, I think it's worth our while to actually see what the final drawings are. right? Especially the the revision in lot 1. And Joel, do you plan on bumping up the size of the frontage, or are you going to leave it at 100 feet?
No, that's pretty substantial as it is, King.
Okay, no, I was just asking.
Yeah, 100 feet's the minimum, right? So,
Yeah, no, I understand 100 feet's the minimum, right? Yeah, but that's the thing, it's the minimum, right?
That's really substantial.
Okay. And I think
I mean, the only my only revision is I'm going to add I'm going to cut off the back of lot 1 and add a path down to the creek, okay? And Laura wanted me to add the 50-foot buffer in on the stream. And Laura, I think the intention of that is that 50-foot buffer, or I'm not looking at it, that may be part of the land that I give to the town anyways,
Yeah, the 50-foot buffer is a requirement. Just a point of clarification, we haven't classified and given it sketch plan approval. So the steps for a minor subdivision are you guys have take action on sketch plan and classified as a minor. Then you call for a public hearing. Then you hold the public hearing, and then you potentially take action on final. Whereas if it was a major subdivision, you still do the sketch plan application. You take action classified as a major, call for a public hearing, hold the public hearing, take action on a major subdivision, and then the developer has to do all of the improvements, work on all the stuff that they said that they were going to do on preliminary, and then they come back to you again for final subdivision. If it's substantial conformance with preliminary, it can just be a resolution. If something has changed, then it needs another public hearing and then final resolution.
You kind of lost me. All the major. This is a minor, so can you tell me the minor steps?
Yeah, so the minor would be the planning board would have to approve the sketch plan and classify it as a minor, then call the public hearing, hold the public hearing, and then take action on a final subdivision plan.
Well, can you approve the sketch plan tonight, contingent upon me adding the back of lot 1 to the town?
We do sketch plan approval with resolution, but you could theoretically, we have in the past, if it's not controversial, have included calling for a public hearing in the sketch plan approval.
Yep. So it would be classification as a minor subdivision, sketch plan approval, and calling for a public hearing, potentially at the next meeting. All at the same time, that would keep you moving forward, and we'd still have the opportunity to hear from the public again, formally. And in the meantime, if you reach out to Mr. Fromowitz, or Mr. Fromowitz would reach out to you, maybe you could coordinate a walkthrough with the residents of Shannon Boulevard, Joel. I'm sure you will. So they can get a first-hand look at what you're up to over there before the public hearing, which would be a minimum of probably 4 weeks away anyway, because we have to call for a resolution calling for a public hearing. So that would kind of come together, but we, would move it forward, but not at a pace where we'd have any concern, I guess. So does that sound?
Just one, Laura's, Dennis Brennan showed up today, and we went through the Craigier and Mesick historical items on the site, and I'm going to bring them over to the town. He suggested donating them to the county, but I said, no, I'm going to bring them over to the town.
Great, thank you.
So what do I do? Deliver it up to your office, Laura, or what?
I would think, I don't know. It actually probably depends on what the cost of the donated items is. The town board might do a resolution, might have to do a resolution accepting them. Maybe like offline, you and Dennis and I can just talk about what it is that you're bringing over. Always happy to look at any of those things and help.
Right.
Oh, guys, to notice, I did not read a comment into the record because I wasn't aware of what the comments were going to be from Mr. Fromowitz, which I do agree that there was a lot of really interesting ideas, but I also agree with that 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 hill is not a suitable place to put a driveway. And also, the reason that the LC zone is there is to buffer impacts to the Leisure Hill. And so the more clearing you put in that buffer, kind of the more impact you have to the Leisure Hill, which is the reason that buffer is there. But I did want to note that I received an email from Ms. Wierzbowski, who lived on the south side of Troy-Schenectady Road, and she was concerned about Lot 5 in particular because I guess people use the Leisure Hill on either side of Troy-Schenectady Road, but she was concerned that if Lot 5 was developed, that it would push everybody who currently uses that access to the Leisure Hill to the southern access to the Leisure Hill, and she has incidences of trespassing and littering on her property because of that as well. And so she's in favor of retaining the open space along the creek on the north side of the road, and developing that as a park.
Okay.
The only reason that she didn't fully pursue that was because she looked at the new plat and saw that the LC zone was reserving all of that area. But I did want to note that there was concern about loss of that area. And I did get another comment of somebody who just wanted to make sure that the Leisure Hill was being protected in any development. I couldn't find that one quickly enough, but there's some competing interests, and I just wanted to put that out there. You don't always see all of them. They're in planning office.
Okay. There is one other point I had, and it's the first point I had made, and then we'll, so Joel, thank you for, at least being willing to meet with some of the local neighbors there, and, just seeing how that discussion would go. But this is a question for you, Alexis, and as a planning board member, I'm very clear on where Joel stands and where he comes from, and it seems that Joel has, with clean title, purchased this property. I still have a question on expectation of the neighbors. Along with that question is the fact that they seem to be paying in some way, shape, or form an assessment for parkland. And so I have a question about what do they think they're paying for in terms of where spots are and where open spaces are. And I'm looking for a clear statement legally that either the neighbors have any claim to any expectations relative to the code, or they don't. And it's just too bad, sorry guys, but you have no legal standing. Is that possible that you could?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the latter comment that you just made sounds harsh, where you say, too bad, so bad, you have no standing.
The law is real, right?
Yeah, and I would say, like
I
said, I mean, regardless, I mean, like I said, the statute of limitations has long passed. I mean, when it comes to expectations, I can confirm that they're not the park district that they're paying. So Avon Crest West and Avon Crest North are both park districts. There's special districts, as Laura said, that have their own self-funded budgets that go towards maintaining things like the mowing of the little island on Shannon Boulevard. They are not paying for maintenance of Mr. Bezoin's property. So, I mean, whether that would be something that, the town board should be more clear, I guess, when communicating to residents who are within each parkland district on what exactly they're paying for. But I can confirm that they're not paying for Mr. Bezoin's property. It likely is maybe perhaps going towards the parcel directly behind Mr. Bezoin's property, which is indeed open space and parkland. When it comes to, I mean, I know the focus has been on expectations, and while relevant, they're not so much legally relevant when somebody else has a superior property right. I mean, I think, I don't think I could really state it any further than that. I mean, we looked at the maps, I mean, in terms of whether or not but I always say this when giving legal advice, even that, because though it's not legally relevant, it still is something that, Joel and the planning board can take into consideration when not in denying or approving this subdivision, but just in, making sure that residents feel as if they're involved. I mean, there's no harm in having a community meeting just to provide more transparency, but that their expectation couldn't prevent Mr. Bezoin from going forward with this if he has a legal right to do so. And I mean, I guess the right of recourse would be against, I guess, the realtor or whoever communicated to these residents that it was indeed, forever wild or open space.
Okay, thanks, Alexis. I feel like you clearly answered that. So thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And again, it's an unfortunate situation that we all feel that way. But again, we have an application that we need to take action on, and the next action would be a resolution calling for sketch plan approval, classifying it as a minor subdivision and calling for a public hearing. Mr. McPartland and the rest of the board, are we okay with that? To move the ball forward basically at this point in time.
Well, I think certainly the offer by Mr. Bezoin to have a community meeting makes me a lot more comfortable saying that we're prepared. As you mentioned, calling for the public hearing is its own action and would push out a public hearing at least to the second meeting in November, if I'm correct. So that gives us a good month to digest any revisions to the plan, understand the intention to convey the land either to the Nature Conservancy or the town of Niskayuna, and further solicit any feedback from neighbors, hear what they have to say.
All right, thank you. And Joel, if you have a meeting with some of the neighbors, obviously you're welcome to invite. I guess Mr. McPartland, I'm sure, would always like to support. I'd be glad to support. If you'd rather not have the planning board members there and speak with the residents, that's between you and the residents also. We'll do anything we can to help as always.
No, I think Patrick, Laura, and Clark should probably be there.
Okay, great. All right.
But,
All right, so
we'll let Clark or Laura organize it too. I'm available anytime.
okay.
I'm right around the corner.
So I heard we got a tentative resolution for next meeting, again, for minor subdivision, calling for a public hearing and sketch plan approval. Is there anybody opposed to that? Let me ask that question. Okay. Hearing no one opposed, we'll have a tentative resolution and we'll move forward at least at this point in time. And again, I'd like to thank the public for their input, and we'll see how things work out. Okay. Is there anything else on this project right now, Mr. McPartland or Joel, Mr. Bezoin?
No.
No. Okay. Update the drawing, and we'll work on a community meeting, and we'll move forward. All right. So we'll close that discussion item.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And we're going to move on next to 3514 State Street site plan application for new signage at Mohawk Army Navy. And I believe we have a representative of the sign company on tonight. I believe, and if you're there, please unmute yourself and state so. And I appreciate your patience tonight. Anybody there?
So Kevin, I was practicing with Russ Hazen earlier today, and he was having major problems, and we didn't end up resolving them. And I ended up having to go into another meeting, and I wasn't able to get back with him. I might be able to just call his phone. Or we can look at the plans tonight, and he was the one that I was calling out earlier to see if he was on the phone, because he couldn't get the link to work.
How about we do this? How about I've looked at it extensively, so how about we have some discussion, and then we'll see where that leads and whether or not maybe you can follow up with the applicant, because tonight it's basically discussion. There's no resolution, right?
Yeah.
So I did get an opportunity to take a drive over there today, and I know that a couple of the open items at the planning office I put in the agenda statement was, what's the current size of the sign that's on the front of the building, and also on the west side there's like a banner hanging up, and what's the size of that? Sounds like that banner may not have been permitted. That's on the west side of the building. So those are two data points, some information that the planning office will work on getting from the applicant. We also have a signage package that was submitted by the applicant, which shows some new signs on the facade of the building. I'm going to try to, and the facade is about 71 feet long, and if I interpret correctly, the package, it looks like the planning department, Laura Clark, is taking it that the sign that has the Carhartt and the Red Wing shoe along with Army Navy is one sign, is the interpretation. All right. And that's one thing that I wanted to discuss, because when you interpret that as one sign, obviously only sign has to be less than 50 square feet maximum on a facade, and this sign comes out approximately 198 or whatever square feet if you interpret it as one sign, which is greater than the 50 feet allowed, which would require about a 45 square foot waiver to allow the proposal to go forward. My question, Laura or Clark, is that when I look at it, if the applicant were to break off the two, was it the Red Wing and the Carhartt portions of the sign to separate signs, then no sign on the facade would be greater than 50 square feet, because the remaining Army Navy sign comes in about 40 square feet or so. Would that be a way to skin this, or a way to evaluate this and avoid the waiver situation? And maybe we could ask the applicant to reduce the size of the Carhartt and the Red Wing shoe, and maybe move those to the left or right on the facade, similar to what we've done over on the new Ace Hardware, and maybe we can work something out. So that's what I was thinking.
Well, I guess the question is, which waiver do you prefer? Because you can only have one facade sign. So if you separated them out, you'd have three, and you would need a variance for two. And then if you, like right now, they're all combined together. So if you can consider them as one, then it's a larger square footage sign.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. So we got to think about precedent if somebody else comes in for signage over in that area, right? So what's better or what's worse, right? Is it allowing too big a facade sign, or because you have available 71 linear feet here, to break it into three to help the applicant, but not really maybe hurt ourselves, because how many buildings are going to come in with 71 linear feet? You know, I'm just talking out loud here. I just want to get the,
So Chairman Walsh, I think I agree with where you're heading with that comment. My preference, and also the precedent to the point that we did with Hatchet Hardware, is I would much rather see three conforming signs and give a variance for having the two, the Carhartt and the Red Wing shoe sign also on the facade.
All right. Now there's no lighting shown, right, Laura, on this? There's no internal lighting on the facade there?
There is not shown on this map. We can clarify the lighting.
Yeah, we definitely need to clarify the lighting. But if they were to have, I think internally lit signs are okay over in that zoning district.
Yes.
And if that was the case, if they did something similar again to Ace Hardware, move the Carhartt, to the left on the facade and the Red Wing to the right, possibly reduce the size slightly of those two items. They can leave the Army Navy as proposed, and then we would grant a waiver for two additional signs versus one really large sign, and that might put us in a better place for where we go in the future. Especially if you look at the properties that are over there, there's not many places that have the size of the facade that they have available to them. Does that seem reasonable? And I don't like the banner sign on the west wall, but that's just me, by the way. That's another concern. The other thing is, I think that's kind of what the applicant, if you look at the way they broke out the size, it's almost like they were implying that they had three signs there. And if you look at the square footage, the Army Navy sign comes in at about 40, the Carhartt like 12 square feet, and the Red Wing's about 14. If you add those three up, this is my calculations, I come up with 66 square feet. So it's much less than the proposal. But I know that the planning department looks at the maximum size, which would be the Red Wing height, and they use that to dictate the whole size of the facade sign. And that's where the waiver becomes substantial in that role. So if we break them up into three, I think we also have the benefit there that it actually reduces the size, at least it's on file of the signs,
Yeah, and so Laura and Clark, I mean, I know the statement I made, right? But looking to getting advice from you, if we have to make a choice between a waiver for the number of signs versus the size of a single sign, I think we're better positioned for the future, and also based on our precedents. Or let me ask it: are we better positioned if we actually get the signs to conform by size and give the waiver for just number?
I mean, I think it's probably better. Clark, you can jump into. I do think that you need to move the logos away, though, so to become more logo signs, which is more similar
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that statement too.
to like you brought up. Because where we've granted the large facade signs have been over in like Mohawk Commons, where there are big box stores that are really far away from the road. This particular store is pretty close to the road, so having 3 smaller signs, one main sign and then 2 vendor signs is probably a better precedent than allowing a very large, because even though right now, we have to draw that box around the, the minimum, but, and right now, there's a lot of dead space in that, square footage, but, if they were allowed to have 100-foot sign and then they wanted to come and just fill the whole thing up with Army Navy, you could. So
Right, yeah.
I think breaking it apart is probably better for driving up and down State Street. Clark, did you have?
Laura, if I could jump in, I've spoken with the gentleman at Saxton Signs, and I think he would absolutely be in agreement with what Jengis is mentioning. And it's because from a strategy standpoint, this is exactly the same as Hatchet Hardware, where having those 2 brands represented with the Army Navy store is what he's trying to portray with the 3 signs. So I think it would be extremely consistent with what we've done at Hatchet Hardware, and I think the applicant would be very on board with it.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree. So I guess I request that, I'd be glad to speak to the applicant, but I guess it should come through the planning office. We could request that he separate the Carhartt and the Red Wing sign, move them down the facade a little bit, possibly reduce the size of those slightly, show how he plans to light those if they are going to be externally or internally lit, and then keep the Army Navy sign about the size that he has proposed. We're not trying to say, okay, go to 3 signs and make them all bigger, because now we're giving you a little bit of freedom here. We still want to keep it as tight as possible.
Yeah.
So we can keep the Army Navy sign that's proposed the same. Oh, it's about 40 square feet as shown on the drawing. And then, get the size of the current sign and the size of the banner sign that's on the west side of the store. Again, I don't particularly care for the banner that's on the west side of the store. And maybe by allowing the applicant to have the Carhartt and Red Wing sign on the facade, maybe that would eliminate the need for the banner sign on the west side of the store. I would hope so. But I think we need to have those discussions, and if the applicant's willing to make some modifications there, I think we could be in good shape personally.
And one other thing we're working with him on is he has a sign facing the parking lot towards Albany, basically, that we couldn't find any record of that ever really being approved. So we wanted to just bring that to the planning board and either roll that into this approval or take some action on it. So
Right. Yeah, I didn't see that. Was that it wasn't in the packet, was it, Clark, or was it mentioned in the agenda statement? Or
I think it was mentioned in the agenda statement, but he hasn't provided any dimensions or artwork of that sign. So
okay. All right. Well, let's get the information. Let's reach out with the suggestions and see where that leads. I think we could. I think we can get something that we can all agree to here that might prevent future problems.
Right. And to just reinforce your point, Chairman Walsh, the applicant should really think that, we're not looking to have to deal with looking at 3 of the biggest signs that are conformable, right? He really should keep them within a reasonable size perspective, right? Because at the end of the day, there is a size variance that goes along to by approving 2 additional signs, right? So,
yep.
I'm just stating what Chairman Walsh said in a maybe it's more obtuse way, but at the end of the day, right? He really needs to get to the minimum possible size of the signs.
Yes. Does anybody else have any comments on that from the planning board? Thoughts? Everybody okay with that? And we'll let the planning department contact the applicant and see if we can tighten it up a little bit.
So we have to. I just have to double check that we have the ability to waiver in the CH zone. I think we do, but I'm going to double check. And then I guess my question is, if you guys are kind of comfortable with that approach, can we do a tentative resolution? Obviously, you can table it if you're not happy with it, but since this would be the second time that you see it.
No, I'm okay with that, but again, we need the details on lighting. I think that's pretty important there.
It's really
And,
important. And the other thing is to give him direction. Like, I would typically treat the banner on the one side of the building as a temporary sign, so you'd only be allowed to have it up for 2 months with a building permit. If he wanted it up for longer than 2 months, it would be, it would be treated as a permanent sign, and that would need a huge waiver because it's a really big banner. So if you guys had any thoughts, like if we were saying that we would prepare a tentative resolution, we're not interested in keeping that banner on the side of the building permanently, we can pass that information on, or if you want to see more information on the banner, it's up to you guys.
Well, I know where I stand. We heard where I stand. I wasn't thrilled about the large banner on the side of the store there. And
Yeah.
hopefully by having the vendors that he supports on the facade, maybe the need of that will go away. But I guess we need to have that discussion with the applicant. But Laura or Clark, if you have that discussion, I'd be glad to join in. And if we could get there, and then I would think a tentative resolution would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so Laura, pertaining to the facade sign that's currently under the application, I don't have any issues forming a resolution based on what we said here today. But I do feel that there is an open item both with that banner and also with the sign that Clark mentioned facing east. So yeah, I don't know how, obviously they're not clear to me that they're in the application, so we can have a resolution just relative to the facade signs. But I think it's worth our while to just clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up with the other signs, the banner and the other sign.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, sounds good. And yeah, I don't know what the urgency is with the applicant. So if it's something that they can't come through, they want to rethink it, well, then we'll just have to wait, and we won't have a tentative, we won't go forward with the tentative resolution, and we'll wait for them to come back with whatever the next proposal is. That's an option also. Okay, any other comment from the planning board on that? No? All right, thanks, Laura, Clark, and I think we got some good direction there to keep this moving forward, all right? And we'll keep moving on the agenda. Next being 2207/2209 Knott Street site plan application for a tenant change. And that's Mr. Nitchie, I believe that's how you say it. And I believe he's online, shows up as global.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. This is my company's Google account, but yeah, it's Nikki actually.
Nikki, okay. All right, thank you. And Mr. Diarpino's emailed us and said he would be the project lead on this. I did get an opportunity to take a walk down there today and walk around, kind of scope some things out. But I think maybe to kick it off, Mr. Nikki, right?
Yes.
Maybe you could just kind of talk about what the proposal is and.
Sure. So the proposal is for the space that I've leased, 2209 Knott Street, the former Niskuna Barbershop, and 2207, officially it's 2207 Knott Street, although the primary or only entrance to that building is on Clifton Park Drive, which is the former David's Beauty Salon. Both spaces are vacant, and I've leased both spaces, and they have an adjoining wall between the two that will allow us to open up to create what I would say is a comfortable space for a community restaurant. The hours of operation that we've set are based upon the when it becomes a lighter traffic area, so we won't open up until 3:00 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, when we also have a little bit less traffic, certainly among the other businesses within that multi-use facility or shopping center, I should say, we'll open up for brunch, lunch, and dinner. So opening up each day at 9:00 on Saturday and Sunday. We have, especially given where we're at right now historically, the business has built in or planned to build in a takeout window, so people who want to get food to go can do so, and also a window that will allow us to do soft serve ice cream and gelato in the warmer weather months. We've been through it kind of thoroughly on my end, so I'm certainly open to answering any questions you have about the project. But ultimately, we'd like to be able to request it be called to a public meeting at the first possible convenience, because we're at the point now where once the building permits are approved, we are ready to begin building. And the sooner we're able to open, the sooner we're able to serve the community. That's it.
Well, part of the process here, though, in this zoning district is a special permitted use, which is going to require town board action. Special use permit will have to be issued. So we got, we have a bit of a process ahead of us. And it's not just the planning board. So
sure.
One question I did have is the takeout window. You show a takeout area. Would there be a window there? Would that be for the ice cream and for takeout food in that little takeout area that's shown on your sketch?
That's correct. If you want to walk up and take out without having to go into the facility, you can do that in the same space.
Okay. All right. And we did have a follow-up email for those that may not have an opportunity to take a look at it. It was basically the fit up. It showed the table layout and the bar stools. Again, seems to be straightforward there based on the available space. And one of the questions we had is all that information or all the sizes would have to conform to any New York State building code or local codes, of course, as far as occupancy, safety, so on and so forth. So what it really boils down to is, and I guess I'll just turn it over to Mr. DiArpino before I say too much. See if he has anything to say. If you had an opportunity to take a look at anything today.
So I know the barbershop building pretty well, but I haven't been in David's salon to understand how those two buildings connect. So I think if I'm looking at the plans correctly, there's a height change between the two, correct?
There is. The barbershop is about 18. It's about 18 inches above where the salon. And so if you're looking at that drawing there, just you'll see 2 or 3 stairs, I believe, connecting those two spaces.
Okay.
And we've gone through with the architect to make sure that we've built an ADA compliant restroom in that back area, the dining room area, if you will, along with its own entrance that'll be ADA compliant as well. So anyone needing access, wheelchair access or otherwise, anything ADA with or compliant has the means certainly to be able to park. That's actually where the handicap parking is on that side of the building. Enter through the west side and be able to sit at any of those tables and then utilize the ADA compliant bathroom as well.
Okay. And then Lang's Pharmacy is the storefront to the left, and they also incorporate that small room that has the exit on the back. Is that correct? Right there.
That's correct. That's I believe actually already been approved for them. Originally, the plan was for them to expand and utilize that entire salon area, but based on their business operation, it was more space than they were looking to use. And when the opportunity was presented to them, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn for them, as they told me, the idea of having one single tenant as opposed to 2 separate tenants was a little bit more ideal, as they don't want to be in the landlord business, which I get.
Okay. Outdoor seating, any thoughts on what you want to do along Knott Street?
Well, I think that's probably going to best be determined once this construction project takes place on Knott Street. I think a little bit premature, at least from my planning perspective, to determine what's really going to fit and where. If there's a demand for it, and if it's something that we can do in a way that we're compliant both with parking and capacity issues, then I would certainly be open to it, but it's not a part of our plan currently.
Okay. So a lot of projects that we've seen previously, there's a few things that the neighbors are always very concerned with, one of which is any exterior lighting and lights being on basically after 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So there's most businesses, maybe the co-op being the one that stays open till 8 o'clock. A lot of the other businesses close before then. So this would be a little bit different. And then the amount of traffic or noise that could be associated with something being open as late as 11 p.m.
Okay.
So those are definitely things that you may hear from the public.
Sure.
They're probably concerns that we're going to have too, but to understand, it's not a large restaurant as far as the footprint and the number of tables that are there. I'd like to set up a site meeting with any planning board members that are interested, at least getting in and seeing. Have you breached the wall yet between the two?
No, we're at the point now. We're at the point now where we have put in for a building permit. But I The demolition, if you will, that we need to do is something that can be done within a matter of days. This is not a tear down and rebuild type of a project. So I would rather leave things as they are until they're approved and then be able to do demolition, clean, and roll into construction one after the next, because this will be the fourth restaurant that I've turned, if you will. Once you have a capable group of people working with you, you don't want to let them go. So I don't want to bring them in, do demolition. Hey, you know what? Come back in a couple of weeks when the permit is approved, then bring them back again. I'd rather just, begin working and work until we're finished.
Okay. Basement below these buildings?
There is a basement below the front part of the building that's currently Lang's and the barber shop. We at this point have no intention of utilizing the basement. Right now it's used for, I think, storage, papers, things of that sort by the pharmacy. But we would reserve the option, if possible, to be able to put some sort of a refrigeration unit down there should we need a second refrigerator, that type of thing. But at this point in time, it's not anything that's being utilized, but it does exist. The rear building, David's Beauty, is a slab building.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So the process, a process, and Laura can straighten out. So I think this is a case where we have to make a recommendation to the town board for a special use permit, but we have to have a public hearing ourselves, right? So we have a public hearing, listen to what the public has to say, make sure we address any concerns, and make a recommendation to town board. And the town board will also have a public hearing and then either grant, deny, or grant the special use permit with conditions as we've seen before, or deny it, and then the project can go forward. So there's a bit of work here ahead of us, especially with two schedules, planning board and with the town board schedule. And from a outside of the building, it looks like there's not many changes. As David stated, there'll probably be some signage in the future. There'll probably be some lighting that we may have to address from a light spillage standpoint, so it doesn't impact the neighborhood. Parking appears to be okay for the size of the restaurant that's proposed. So it's really, it's really a tenant change, but because of the type of the tenant, it kicks it into this special permitted use, which the town board needs to buy into. So, because we have a lengthy process ahead of us, should we look in? Like, this is just a question. Should we be calling for a public hearing to see what's out there as soon as we can? I mean, this is a little bit different than a site plan where there's lots of engineering, different ways to skin it, right? I mean, this is basically going to be a bar/restaurant at this location, and we can hear what the public has to say and what kind of concerns that come out, and that would move the process as fast as we possibly can that way. So we would need a tentative resolution for next meeting, calling for a public hearing on the application. At that point in time, the applicant can give a summary to the public, and we listen to what they have to say, and then so that would be. So basically, that's a month, right, Laura? I mean, next meeting we would have the resolution calling for the public hearing. So the public hearing wouldn't be until the end of November, right?
You don't always have to do a resolution calling for a public hearing. You sometimes do them if you're doing like a seeker action, but the town board is the lead agency on a special use permit. So I think you can just call for a public hearing if you guys are ready to listen to what the public has to say about it. We could have it. We could hold the public hearing at the next meeting if we wanted to.
I know that would help the applicant, and I'm looking to streamline this. I'm looking to be efficient, I guess would be the word. David, you have a concern with that, or think it's okay just to go right ahead for a public hearing, everybody? I see a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. There was one reference to a plan that had parking demarcated with some green. I'm trying to read through it here. I didn't see any additional drawings after just the floor plan. But I guess there's two concerns with that. One of which is that the area on Crescent wouldn't necessarily be changed that much, but there's potential based on the county's final plan as to where the parking would be in front of the building on Knott Street.
Is this my turn to speak? I don't know if you're discussing with the board.
It's an open discussion. Yep.
Sure. So yeah, what that's in reference to is actually a handwritten drawing that I came up with because I wasn't sure if the architect's drawing was going to be available in time for this meeting here, and I'm so fortunate that it was for everyone's benefit, not just my own. But in regards to the parking, both on the Knott Street side and on the Clifton Park Road side, we tally for that building itself 12 spaces. Per requirement, we need 7. So we actually have a surplus of 5 spots. And I wouldn't imagine, although I've been mistaken before, that we're going to lose 40% of our parking with the way things end up laying out by the county. In terms of mention regarding exterior lighting, those sorts of things, we are happy to comply with whatever code asks us to do. Really, we only want illumination for the purpose of public safety. We're not looking to have any, and I don't think it would be allowed anyway. We're not looking for any illumination of signs. We're not looking for any neon signs in the window. That's not the type of establishment that we're looking to open. But we want to make sure that people can walk out the door, and if there's broken glass, if there's a crack in the sidewalk, that they're able to see that. I actually am looking to open this space because I've had my fill of working at other places until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And nothing would slow me down more than somebody getting hurt and having to stay even later that night, besides the moral piece of it. So public safety is the only real factor involved in terms of our exterior lighting. But again, when it does get in front of a public hearing, I'm happy to address all these to anyone with concerns or support.
Okay.
So Laura, I do have a question about the parking, right? So we've got 2 things here, right? We've got the number of people, 30 to 50 expected in the restaurant, and also the square footage parking requirement. Are those 2 things going to be in sync on this project?
Yeah, the CN zone has a specific parking requirement for the mixed use building. It's not actually a mixed use building. It's restaurants and a multi-use shopping center with shared parking facilities. So I think that's okay.
Okay. So the expectation there is that the shared parking that's available, which I guess some way, shape, or form will remain available, is also going to get used by patrons for this restaurant.
Yeah, that's sort of the nice thing about it being shared. And then I did actually want to say, I don't think that the county has, at least any of the plans I've seen, reduced the parking in that area, but the town actually wants to add more parking in that area. Like we, at some point when I have like a moment, need to put out an engineering study for that area, because we've already looked at potentially adding like a couple, 2 or 3 parking spaces. And if we did that, I mean, it's sort of, down the road a little, and we want to coordinate with everybody who's working there, and obviously anybody who wants to open up a business, because I think that an advantage to a restaurant is it's going to add a little life to the street, which is kind of like what we were hoping with the Knott Street project would be, you're going to get better sidewalks, you're going to get more lighting, so having a use that's going to invite people to those buildings to use them, I think is beneficial. But like we might be able to add some trees or some landscaping or something actually like closer to like the residences on Crescent. So like you'd still be able to like come into the parking. Like right now it's a sea of asphalt. We've talked about that a million times. And this is totally separate from the restaurant proposal. But the town wants to do something over there because the cars drive like crazy. They don't understand where to drive. I walk over there all the time, and like several times I thought I was in where the pedestrians are supposed to be, and a car was driving straight towards me. Like, okay.
Yeah, no, you definitely make up your own rules at that intersection as a
So, like,
driver and
if
as a
we
pedestrian.
define it, we might be able to put a little strip of grass with some trees,
Yeah.
which would then also be, like a buffer to the people across the
Yeah.
street. Then you could have a little bit more lighting and more inviting of a facade too, I think,
Yeah,
if you
so on that note, so by the way, I'm all for calling for a public hearing for the next meeting, so no issues there. But on the note that you just mentioned, is there any kind of a sketch or drawing that is at least most recent that we could see? I think it would just be worthwhile seeing that. I mean,
yes.
I mean, not we don't have to do it today, but just, by the time we get to the public hearing and the subsequent meetings.
Yeah, if you guys are still chatting, I can see if I can get it up on my computer.
Are there any other questions that I can answer for you in terms of either the operation, design, history as an operator. I don't know if this is premature, if those are exclusively things that would be
No, I
discussed
mean,
in public
no,
forum.
thank you. And I know I think it was mentioned or either with your submittal that you had experience in the business, and you might want to just summarize your experience. So know a little bit
Oh,
about you.
sure.
That would be great.
So I grew up in the restaurant business and subsequently the comedy club business. I own the Comedy Works Comedy Club in Saratoga Springs and the bar that's attached to it, which was formerly the Newberry in Saratoga. We are still shut down 7 months later here as being a live performance venue. And I clearly have the itch, obviously, to do something. But for 10 years, I'm a proud graduate of Hillside Elementary School. Who left and then came back. And I remember places like the Steak and Ale years and years ago when I was younger. I remember Flavorland before it became Friendly's and then turned into a Starbucks. And I now have kids in 1st and 4th grade, and I would love nothing more than to be able to get them a burger without getting in the car. I live within walking distance of the co-op. And when I say I've been back 10 years, I've looked at this area for 10 years because I think that it's something that there's a clear need for in the community, regardless of age demographic or white collar, blue collar. I think that there's a need for it. And I view this shopping center almost akin to oceanfront property. They're not going to make any more. You're not going to find that they're going to tear down this shopping center and make it larger or build to 2 stories or 3 stories. There's something historic and charming and very welcoming about the shops that are along that row. And to be able to secure 2 of those spaces to turn them into a restaurant and bar, which I think is in need, it's personally, and I think professionally, it's a win. It's a business that I clearly am passionate about, but that I believe in. Not a lot of people opening up restaurants right now, and I'm all in. So.
Yeah. So Thomas, I do want to ask you, and this is going to be so Michael, you're going to love this one. This is going to be a semi-Michael Scribby tennis question. All right. So I'll ask it for him.
Sure.
You feel your business plan, given the current conditions and where those might be in a year or 2, with delayed vaccines or whatever contingencies are there, you feel this place is going to open and be in business, or it's going to be sitting around for a while?
Without question. The last thing I want to do is fail 4 blocks away from my house, number one. But without question, people will always need to eat, whether they need to eat at the grocery store, whether they want to take out. So the business plan, however, is built on the fact that if we don't see one customer on premise, we can still survive. Because that takeout component is in there. As an aside, I also we have in my other businesses we have a website developer and a website designer on staff, and part of what they're working behind the scenes while we're doing construction to do is to be able to build our own online platform where if people want to come and order takeout food, they can do it from there, but they can do it without any sort of a convenience fee, a Melio fee, or another food delivery fee. So if you spend $12 to have food to either pick up or be delivered, there's no platform fee because we own the technology outright. So there are a lot of what I would say details that I think we do right by the customers and by the community, and I think they support that. I would also say to that we have a very favorable lease with a very wonderful person or people in Lang's Pharmacy who own the building. We had a very open conversation before I entered into the lease about what our expectations are of them and their expectations are of us. And I would tell you that we have a lease that's going to allow us to go through the bull as well as the bear. So I do.
Yeah. I mean, just a couple of things. Laura, are you okay? Are we still talking or?
Oh yeah, no, I found it whenever you want to see it.
Just one of the last points, as Mr. Arpino de Arpino mentioned, it's kind of the late night hours. I think that's going to probably be the biggest sticking point.
Sure.
Compared to some of the other places there. But
Sure.
You should also consider that as having a restaurant in a vicinity where if I go out to ShopRite Plaza, for the professionals in the area, people at G, etc., a restaurant that's open during the day for lunch, right, could actually generate quite a bit of business, especially if we assume that we get back to a point in time where people are eating on premise.
Sure.
So that's just something to keep in mind.
And I would note in the in the detail that I sent over, I hold 2 liquor licenses in the state of New York, and very proudly, no complaints, no police calls, no violations. That the type of business we're looking to operate is such that when you see an hours of operation to 11 o'clock, perhaps a Niskayuna football game got out at 10:15 on a Friday night, or 9:15 on a Friday night, and we don't want to have to turn people away after 20 or 30 minutes of patronage when they want to get together with their neighbor and celebrate a win, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is not a start live entertainment at 10 p.m. type of a venture, if you will.
And one last question, and then we can move on. Do you have in the back of your mind to actually have any live bands or shows or comics or any of that thing there?
I have I promote at Proctor's, I promote at the Egg, I promote at the Palace. I am more than happy to go and rent somebody else's 4 walls out than have to deal with the crowd and the cleanup and the ticketing and the minutia, for lack of a better term, that go along with that sort of business.
So like you wouldn't even have a live band or something? I mean,
I'd like to put a piano in the bar, but I think that's probably the extent.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Nicky. You have something to pull up, Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the takeout window is fine because it would be pedestrian traffic. It's essentially rather than people walking in the building, they would be walking to the edge of the building, but it can't be vehicle pickup. So like a vehicle couldn't like drive up to the window and pick it up. It has to be like park, pedestrian walk up. And I think that works great for the ice cream. I didn't see that in the but I think that having an ice cream window in the summer that people can walk up to would be super cool. Here is I don't actually have the one where they changed the entrances on Knott Street, and I don't want to cause a lot of problems by showing the one that I have. So I have like zoomed in where you can't really see that part. But like this is, as far as I know, the most recent plan for this area. And so like right now, as we were talking about, this is kind of this wide open. So they would be necking it down. Let me just see if I can zoom in a little. Necking it down a little. And actually adding 4 parking spots here. And what the town had talked about, I know my cursor is kind of small, is like following Clifton Park Road along here and then kind of, cutting over to define this so that people aren't driving and walking willy-nilly through here. And like, that's what I was saying, you might be able to do like a little grass strip here with some trees.
Okay, so the town is thinking about putting an island as opposed to just striping it or something.
I mean, the striping, in the current fiscal crisis might be the first step. But if there's a grant out there or something that can be done to add the green space, I think that the preference is the green space. So we might design, the full and then implement it in phases as budgeting allows. But yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of open space, and there was some thought that like you could, we know that you can fit some parking spots here. But maybe you can flip them so that the parking spots are all here with, a vegetative buffer, and then you have like more sidewalk in front of the building or something. There's a lot of options that we can figure out there. There's a wide open asphalt and a lot of parking available.
Okay.
Laura?
So the most critical neighbors are going to be the ones directly across on Clifton Park and Crescent, right? The folks, although the houses on Crescent start a little bit further up the road, right?
Yeah, it's really just the Clifton Park people here.
Clifton Park folks, right? Yeah.
I mean, it is already a mixed-use building.
No, I mean, overall, I think it still goes with the intent of the area, right? So I don't think, like I said, it'll just be the details around hours and lighting and noise and all of that stuff.
So, Laura, just as an interesting planning issue, I really like the idea of having a walkable destination, a restaurant that really activates the town center. But if you look on Google Maps, right, you'll see that the sidewalk on Knott Street is only on the north side. So if you're a homeowner or a resident on the southern side of Knott Street, you're going to cross somewhere, and the only crosswalk is at the co-op.
Right here.
Well, there'll be a new one there, right?
There's going to be a new crosswalk. Okay. Okay. And that crosswalk was, okay, that's a plan. Okay. All right. But there is no sidewalk, just out of curiosity, on the south side of Knott Street, right?
I don't think there is. No. They're putting the sidewalk here. But I think the majority, You know, as soon as you get to the Schenectady part of Knott Street, I think there's a south side sign. But we're trying to connect that last bit of sidewalk on the north side of Knott Street, and I don't think that there's sidewalk on there, the majority of it.
Okay, thanks for that detail. Okay, thank you.
Laura, to clarify your statement, there's no sidewalk along the south side all the way up to Balltown. No.
I would note, I'm looking at this picture here. There is a proposed 5-foot sidewalk.
Here.
Yeah, there is in the county's new plan, correct.
Yeah, and this is like an 8-foot sidewalk. We wanted it to be a little bit bigger on Complete Street. But it's big enough
gotta be.
to put some stuff out there. Yeah. And like this is still area that could be worked. So like if the outdoor seating, like if you like bent these parking spaces out, you know, and then made the road here and they bent out, you could potentially put something out there. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities over there.
Yeah.
Don't let that.
Okay, Laura, thank you very much. This is exactly what I wanted to see. So thank you very much for bringing that up. So public hearing next time?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you need me to answer?
I don't think so. I'll send out a correspondence through Clark and Laura, and we'll set up a time that's convenient for you to meet over at. You have access to the buildings, correct?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever's convenient for the Langs and yourself, we'll get over there. We'll do a quick site visit.
Okay.
Take a look at everything and set that up before the next meeting, and we'll work with Chairman Walsh on. I'm supportive of moving forward with the next step.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Dave. I was on mute. I was talking away and I was on mute. So yes, we'll have the public hearing regarding this proposal. That would be at the November 9th meeting at 7 o'clock. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, and we'll more to follow, of course. And thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yep, we appreciate it. All right, so that's it under discussion items tonight. We have some reports to talk about. So I guess Laura, and I guess we'll start with you. I guess that'd be the way to handle that.
Okay, I think I'm way the heck down on my thing here, but the first one is probably Celts, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's Celts Farm. Just an update where we stand there, and between you, Mr. D'Arpino, and Mr. McPartland, I'm sure.
Yeah. So last Friday, we met on site. Kevin was there. Patrick was there. David, I know, had taken a look at it. Wasn't able to make it, but he had given us some comments. And I think the important part of that meeting was that there was some concern the last time that we were talking with Joel on what the feasibility would be for removing the asphalt, like as far as like drainage and stuff, and you know how engineering and highway would see that happening. And so they took a look at, you know, the way that the road drains, where the catch basins are and stuff, because Joel had said he didn't want to move the catch basins. And I think that what they came up with is essentially that they would, it's okay, they can remove the pavement. So it's okay. Joel said that he can remove the pavement. He doesn't need to redo the catch basins. They can stay. And they would take the line, like, because the top of that intersection is a curve. And so they can take that line, and Ray was able or willing to take that and follow that curve so that it would be big enough for school buses and fire trucks and anything like that. But there would be a nice curve with a wing that would go around. The stop sign would stay, and the catch basins would stay, and all of the regrading in the wing would direct all of that stormwater to the existing catch basin. So that seemed like it would work pretty good. Highway was okay with that, and engineering was okay with that. Then we looked at what to do if you were able to pull all that asphalt up. Like, you know, how would you situate the multi-use path there? And, you know, because Ms. Trigger had made I was very impressed because I Photoshop stuff. And when I had been talking to Ray, he was like, I'm not visually understanding what you're saying. And so they had provided us with a drawing that they did with Photoshop, kind of showing what it would look like to curve the path. But when we were actually out there, I think, and Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that what we wanted to do, because we want the path to be separated from the road, is to at least continue it along where it is. And then, you know, you'll sweep it through. We picked out the spot where it can cross the trees with the least amount of damage to any of the trees. There's one oak that is big and I like it a lot, but it's leaning and all of its branches are on the side that it's leaning. And if you clear everything out and then put the bike path right underneath it, I think the first thing anybody's going to say is like, that's not a safe tree. So I think we decided that kind of, you have to lose one tree, which is over there, and we could put the path there. And, you know, it would curve a little, but I think the majority of the stub that would get pulled up would be park space. And so we had talked, like Joel's willing to bring over some lupins. I don't know if it's still some conversation we can continue with the Windsor Drive residents, but they were talking about they may even be willing to contribute, you know, some to benches or whatever to make that area very pretty. So we might be able to do some wildflowers, some benches, plant some trees, and just kind of have it be like a really nice gateway over to Blatnick Park from all of those neighborhoods. Which, you know, I don't mind saying out loud, I thought that the best idea would be a road connection, but I think the second best idea is the most beautiful bike path that we can possibly make with Parkland. So that's my 2 cents. Patrick, you want to add anything?
I wanted to just also add that Joel mentioned he intends to plant some of the lupin buds in that area that would be torn up where the stub is removed. And also just wanted to, you know, say thank you to all of the different representatives of the town who were there. I thought it was a really productive site visit, and it was helpful to have Matt Yetto there as well to kind of very clearly define how and where he'd like to see the sewer main, which Joel will be installing, located. So that also factored into the discussion of where to locate the bike path, in that the sewer main, it was Matt Yetto's opinion that the sewer main would be best located on a small plateau just to the south side of the proposed multi-use path. For maintenance purposes, he mentioned that it'd be nice to have it raised up at the level of the multi-use path, and having it run alongside the multi-use path as opposed to underneath or crisscrossing. A zigzagging curved multi-use path presents more challenges in the unlikely but certainly possible event that they need to perform maintenance on that main.
Thank you, Patrick. And is the next action by Joel to update drawings again based on our discussion in field walk? I think Joel's still online here also.
Is he still here? Yeah, I think that was next. Oh yeah, he is. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that we have to show, Kevin, is essentially removing the stub. Ray Smith talked about the radius, so we had agreed that the town highway department will do the radius and the apron, and we'll remove the stub. Okay. So and like Patrick had mentioned, Matt was concerned that they have access to the sewer main, so we're going to put the sewer main in a flat area to the south side of the bike path. And when we laid out the bike path as it's drawn right now, it pretty much missed all those big trees except for the leaner. So one tree down, but we get to save all the other trees. So I think the only thing that we got to show, Kevin, is the radius and removing the stub.
Okay. All right.
And we have all our updated survey information, and we're actually doing, we're working on detailed design right now. So that's kind of where we stand.
All right.
No,
Anything else?
Ray had mentioned is that we want it to be really attractive, and anything we can do, you know, to make it kind of like this, you know, beautiful asset to people, encouraging them to use the bike path to get to Blatnick Park, because I think that's going to be an amazing pedestrian connection anyway. But we also wanted to discourage people from thinking that they could drive down it. So we had talked, I think, Patrick, you talked about this more than I did, but I think that Ray did not like the bollard, right? He had some kind of a gate that he knew that works in Lock 7, and it's close to where people park for Lock 7, and they leave it up in high traffic times. I think that it looks relatively decent, doesn't allow traffic to go down, and then they typically take it down in winter when there's snowbanks and other things that discourage cars from driving down. And so he had an idea of how he wanted to discourage the cars, which we want to incorporate as aesthetically as possible. And then the only other thing, you know, I think the public has been concerned. You know, the town board and the CAC all said the lands, once we decide exactly where all of the parklands are deed restricted. And then the bike path width, I think everybody decided, correct me if I'm wrong, you want the 12 feet. They may, like, it may make sense to ramp it up from 8 feet to 12 so that you're not going from 8 to 12, you know, and then you're discouraging the cars. But I just feel like for anybody, you know, if we're having this as just as a report, but I think we figured out with the stubs going, we're putting up curbs, we're doing the conservation area, as much language as we can possibly put in there to keep it natural habitat forever. And then, but we want the 12 feet for the back truck and for the fire
And the
truck.
key thing there is, Laura, is when you do that transition, obviously.
One correction, Laura, that we're going to ramp it up from 8 to 12. We agreed that we would start to 12 right where that little roadway is to the town's retention basin, so that we didn't have to put any strong grass in, or, you know, so the fire trucks could access the path.
Right.
Go on there
All
as
right.
easily as possible. Yeah. I mean, I don't really understand how that'll work with the gate. I feel like that's engineering. However,
I mean,
I did want to put out there that I think that we homed in on 12, unless you guys.
Yeah, and so Joel, I'm glad you mentioned that. The key thing about a transition from 8 to 12, and we did agree on 12, is to ensure
Yeah,
that
the-
the emergency vehicles can seamlessly get on there as quickly
Yeah,
as they
8
can.
But I like the idea of I'd be willing to plant trees at the end of that stub too. So we plant some trees, and I'm going to build that interpretive sign. So would you like to put that interpretive sign there or on the Kelp property? You know, I think it'd be more appropriate probably to put it on the bend on the Kelp property, you know? Because it's going to be talking about the Kelp property,
Agreed.
essentially.
I agree with that.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds reasonable, Joe. You know, again, it's the details now. We get down to some details. And Laura, do you have a town designated engineer selected?
It's GPI. And we have
Is it
the
GPI, you said?
Yeah, it's GPI, and we have all the escrow. So as soon as we start getting the engineering to come in, they'll take a look at everything, and then we'll start diving into the stormwater and the, you know, the separations. 10 state standards. I don't really know what they are, but I know how to say that.
Right.
I look forward to that.
So this was basically just an update. Do you have anything else, Laura, David, Patrick, Joel, regarding Kelts Farm?
Yeah, I'm just
No,
excited.
we're just doing detail engineering now.
Okay.
And looping.
Oh, and one last thing, Laura, did you get Clark's email about the town sewer department was brush hogging the current sewer easement, which once we build the new sewer, disappear? And, you know, I stopped and talked with him. I said, I got no problem with you brush hogging it, but it's kind of like, you know, it's definitely going to go away, but go ahead and brush hog it. But could they brush hog that triangular piece of area that we're going to diagonal the sewer through? You know, remember we had talked about we wanted to do that anyway so that we could kind of see the lay of the land.
Yeah, I did. Well, I'm sorry I didn't respond. The town can't actually do that.
No, it's not my land, it's your land. I'm talking about your piece next to the stub. Next to the stub.
That's not my call. You could reach out directly to Ray, but I think that it's not something, they're just doing maintenance over our lines. It wouldn't be normal to pull them off and have them do like a planning project. I definitely wouldn't have the authority to allow them to do that. Ray may, but I think that I would say for the time being, I'd let that one go.
Wait, who do the sewer guys report to?
Or Matt,
You?
actually. That's the sewer guys, it's Matt. Yeah.
And Matt reports to you, right?
No, he does not. Nope. None of those guys.
Who does Matt report to?
The supervisor.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Sure.
Oh, I'm in trouble going to you then. Oh no.
Yeah, leave Laura out of this one.
Oh geez.
I wouldn't recommend doing that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I just thought while they had the brush hog there, I mean, I can appeal to Ray then, right?
No, if it's water
Yes,
and
Matt.
sewer guys that are brush hogging, it's Matt.
Okay. Well, who owns the brush hog? The town, right? Or is it? They don't share equipment between departments? I guess not.
Okay, so so I think the report is just the stub. Joel agreed to remove the asphalt, and I'm gonna work, as hard as I can to make it beautiful and attractive and a good piece that we can all be proud of that brings the park closer to Windsor. Yes.
Okay, and we'll look forward to commencing engineering and keep working on this. All right. All right. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, thank you, Joel, and the project leads. Reports. Let's see. JCC sign 2565 Balltown Road.
Okay. So I copied you guys on that email. There's different settings that we used. So what he has right now, I think he has it brighter in the day because he initially turned it down for the day to 200 and you couldn't read the sign. So he set it up brighter during the day, and then he has a nighttime setting, and I guess the sign has like a photo eye that can tell, or maybe it just connects to the internet and knows when the sun's setting. I don't know. It's pretty smart. So, and he has it on a nighttime setting. So he's got the nighttime setting right now at 200. I drove by this last week. He had it at 200 and it was set to white. So hopefully some of you guys were able to drive by. It was a lot better. Just throwing light wise, the 200 setting was a lot lower. I don't know if anybody had a chance to see it. Definitely a lot less light being thrown. And then starting today, it changed to a black background. I haven't driven past it at night because it was today, but I will be able to drive past it at night and take a look at it. I did notice that when he changed it to black the last time, it significantly reduced the light being thrown off on either side when it was to black. So I think that probably the light casting of the 200 brightness plus the black background is going to be the least amount of light on either side of the sign. But go and take a look at it. The idea is it was white all last week. It's black background all this week. And then if you guys have a chance, I think we'll hone in on what we really want to see the beginning of next week, and then we'll do the memo and record it to the resolution.
I drove by during the day, took a look at the black, but definitely need to see it at night and see if it functions. So,
Does anybody else think the letters seem smaller to me? I definitely think I could visually see them better, but as I was going by, I had to, I don't know, quickly read just because I felt like the letters were a little small, but that might have just been me.
No, I agree with you. And we talked about that. And I'm trying not to micromanage because you can't manage the content, right? That's an interesting thing about electronic sign. I think, some of the difference that we're seeing is that they're choosing to put 4 lines on their sign instead of 3. I did talk to him about it. They had originally had lower case lettering, and we did go to all cap locks, and I do think that helped. But I asked them if they can reduce their message from 4 lines to 3 lines, even though the planning board really can't regulate content like that. And I guess it's very important to the JCC to have the 4 lines. That wasn't something that they wanted to change. So and that does control the size of the letters. But the brightness settings and I think the cap lock letters did help.
Yeah, aesthetically, it was definitely better. Saturday, I went, it's 5:30-ish that I went by, so before dusk, but it definitely was easier to read.
Yeah, with the less bright, right, sign? Or are you talking about the black background?
It was the less bright, so it just
No, that's
wasn't
right, yeah.
glare. Like you could decipher what the letters were.
Yeah.
Yep. And the corner looks good too, or the work that they put into landscaping and cleaning up there is nice, you know, nice improvement. All right, so I guess the bottom line is we got the black background. Take a ride by, especially at nighttime, to see whether it's legible and have any comments, so we can feed that back to the planning department so we can finalize our input to the JCC.
Yeah, if you can drive by during the day too. I think that the brightness settings, we turned down the brightness settings for the day, but they're like half bright. I think the brightness settings in the daytime are fine, in my opinion, but you guys check it out and then we'll hone in next week, early next week.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Laura. Let's see, and Ms. Kim, a COVID-19 update?
So Laura, what is the next planning board meeting?
The 9th of November.
9th of November. So we have implemented and we've developed and have implemented in 3 instances now the protocol for the boardroom. The town board has held 3 budget workshops and an agenda meeting and a finance meeting following this new protocol. And Supervisor Syed has instructed that, for the remainder of the month, that, only the town board be utilizing it. The executive, so, I mean, it allows for 24 people in the boardroom total. That's the new maximum capacity. So just taking into account the number of people on the planning board, and then, myself, and then either Linda or Clark who are there at the meeting, it will really only leave room for about 8 or 9 people, members of the public, presumably many of which are, applicants coming before the planning board. So while we're eager to meet in person, there's no reason to believe that Governor Cuomo won't once again extend the executive order allowing for remote meetings. So a decision will have to be made by the planning board on whether or not it wants to continue to be remote until we can increase the maximum capacity of the boardroom, or if it would like to, try to do an in-person meeting in November. And what we'd have to do is, in advance of the meeting, people who plan on attending have to sign up and register in advance.
Well,
So, I mean,
as you heard tonight, we just called basically for a public hearing, right, at the next meeting. So that has to be noticed. And my gut feeling is that we can do a pretty good job virtually for a public hearing and probably get more people to participate in the neighborhood versus trying to squeeze it in on the 9th in the boardroom and maybe turn people away or whatever. That's just my gut feeling. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I agree with you, Chairman Walsh.
yeah, I mean, I think especially the difference between town board and the planning board is that the planning board, we already have the majority of you have a larger board for the first part. And then second, you have applicants who are coming sometimes with, multiple people, their engineer with them, or, the owner of the project, what have you. And so really having a 24-person limit on the boardroom is going to lead to less public participation. So, I mean, as long as people feel, as if there's nothing wrong with our remote meetings, I think that the planning board is definitely a board that should consider continuing to meet remotely as long as possible. Well, until COVID's over.
Yeah, I mean, my view is at least maybe to the end of the year to see, the town board gets in the groove and how it works out. I did watch some of the town board meetings on YouTube. One of the things that was a challenge was is when somebody in the audience decides to speak up without getting up to a microphone so you cannot hear them. I won't name names, Ms. Kim, who that might be.
I know. Well, and especially it's hard because we have to wear our masks as well.
Yeah, and with the mask, it does muffle, and it's hard to. So my view is that we could probably go forward virtually, at least for the next meeting, and talk about it again for the public hearing for Knott Street for the restaurant bar, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of the smaller, as we discussed, some of the smaller kind of ad hoc meetings, like the like a roundtable discussions that aren't official planning board meetings, like those maybe would be suitable for November to have, in person, perhaps in the boardroom. But like I said, I think as long as Governor Cuomo keeps extending the executive order, which he can only do so for 30 days at a time, that there's no reason for the planning board to rush back and to be in person.
Anybody else have
Also-
any thoughts, opinion? Go ahead. Sorry, Leslie.
That's okay. One thing that concerns me is that the sign-up notice is online, the sign-up process is online. I don't know what people who don't use the internet are supposed to do. And indeed, I don't even know what those who like to use the internet, but like to keep their privacy protected by not putting a lot of personal information out there. There's no way to sign up, apparently. So I think.
Yeah, no, that's a weakness. Definitely, we've taken into account. And I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Unless we're going to be putting in newspapers saying you have to do it online, or we're letting people mail it in, or we have a phone number. That's just like one of the kinks that we're trying to work out as we speak. I mean, one of the things that we're doing for town board meetings is keeping like 3 or 4 spots within the boardroom open for people who show up and aren't aware of the online registration requirement. But it already surprisingly has filled up very quickly.
Well, given that, I think it's in the public interest that we go virtual as long as we can, because they get just as
I
much
agree.
participation this way.
Yeah, and if anybody needs, I mean, if there's anything that we can improve upon, from a technical standpoint, if people feel as if, maybe they want to borrow, like I have a microphone, like if they feel as if there's any type of technology that could benefit how these are run, you can feel free to reach out to myself or Laura, and we can pass that along.
I mean, it seems we've been conducting business fairly well virtually. We've gone through some difficult, challenging projects, right?
Yeah, I've watched quite a few meetings. I think as a whole, this board operates pretty smoothly. It's, hardest part is being able to interrupt each other when somebody wants to speak, because you don't have that, eye-to-eye contact you have when you're in public together, but we seem to work our way through it pretty good. So,
well,
all right. So
next time I see you guys in person, I'll be having, since you only see from the neck up, I'll probably don't realize I'm going to be having a baby in January. So it'll just be a surprise. I see you guys with my newborn.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing good news.
That's right.
Everybody else lost weight too, I'm sure, right? I'm sure. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kim. So the next meeting, November 9th, will be virtual, and that's what we'll notice the public hearing in that way, and we'll move forward. And on the 9th, we'll get an update, see how things are going, and we'll take it from there. Okay. All right. Anything else under reports, Ms. Kim or Ms. Robertson? Clark? No. He knows. Okay. We'll move on with some commission business then. I'll start with Mr. DiArpino. You have anything else for us tonight, Dave?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. McPartland?
No.
Well, thanks again. Mr. Khan?
Actually, I do. It's more procedural. It's for the email about 2220 Crescent, the email Laura had sent out to the planning board and engineers and town board. Laura and I talked about it. There only seems to be one real concern of the Ellen, Mr. and Mrs. Ellen Bogan. And that really has to do with making sure that the right drawings are used when any draining changes are getting made, etc. So Laura and engineering, I think, are going to look into that, right, and make sure that's there. Okay, I mean, Laura's shaking her head, so that's good. And the other one is really more a concern about how people may or may not use the disabled access parking spot. But we'll just have to make sure that Gail, knows to let her clientele who would be using that spot know, you come there, you park, turn the car off, that kind of thing. Don't leave it idling and running. And we're just going to have to keep an eye on what the impact to the neighbors are going to be. Laura and I discussed potentially having Gail do some plantings on that side of the property where the disabled access parking spot is. So I think I summarized it, Laura. If any of the planning board members have any questions or any concerns about that email that was sent out. Originally, we had wanted everything to happen on the side of the parking lot. But for the reasons that we had made conscious decisions on along the way, We ended up with this configuration. Chairman Walsh, you were there obviously too.
Yep.
So we just need to basically, we're hearing from some neighbors now in advance of actually that parking spot and walkway going in.
Right. And also we got the future, right? We're not sure where the future leads us along that corridor, as there's any redesign work, how that affects the handicap parking space also, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right. And Mr. Scrivutes?
Nothing for me. Not a word.
Okay. And Mr. Laflamme?
No, sir.
All right. And Ms. Shenfield?
Nope, nothing for me.
No, you're on mute there.
Can you hear me? Nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Gold?
Nothing for me either.
Anthony, I got, in keeping with Mr. Khan there regarding privilege of the floor, there was a concern. Well, there's two things actually. One was, regarding Via Del Mar, and I know that's a work in progress with the town, and I'm not sure what we can say about that. Just that's a statement from a resident, and that'll be handled through the planning for the Knott Street improvements. And as far as Harry's, I guess, Laura, I don't know if you had an opportunity to maybe have something code enforcement should just stop by and see how things are going down there. And that's how we would address that.
Yeah, we have stopped by. He currently has a building permit submitted for a retaining wall and had initially told our building inspector that, he had like an insurance company come by and there was some dead and overhanging trees that they wanted to get rid of, and they wanted to tighten up that sort of edge of his property. So he has a building permit submitted to do a retaining wall over there. I need to talk to him just to see why he needs the retaining wall and just double check that it doesn't need planning board review. But I did hear from residents that more trees were coming down. I didn't get a chance to call him today. I will give him a call tomorrow and just chat with him on what's going on over there and see. It's not illegal for him to take the trees down at a certain threshold. It needs a building permit. But I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page out there on what he can and can't do. And I know, there's always concern that there's an expansion of a non-conforming use, and that's very sensitive on Route 7. And I'll say it out loud. I've said it to every single non-conforming use that I have run across since I've been a planner, but we consider expansion of parking lot an expansion of a non-conforming use. We have consistently applied that to all of the animal hospitals that we reviewed. It was a kind of a big deal for the one on Route 7 that we just reviewed, and they did not expand their parking. We didn't allow Aqueduct Animal Hospital to expand their parking. So it's not allowable for, people to be expanding.
Yes, Laura, that's what I wanted to make sure we have clarity on, right? The building of a retaining wall, even if he's guided to do that by an insurance company, does that dip into his 10% allowable?
If there's a steep slope and he's just shoring it up with a retaining wall, no, I think that's okay. But if the retaining wall is to make a larger flat area that would allow more parking, that would be something that we would have to look at as a planning board. So that's a conversation I need to have with him. And I don't want to be premature because I haven't had the conversation, but I have had conversations with the neighbors. My building inspectors have been out there, and I do understand that the trees are coming down. I can say on the record that, trees or no trees, there can't be an expansion of use without some kind of a big review and permit and notification of neighbors.
Absolutely. That's a big deal.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks to the building inspectors. It's sensitive, and we appreciate you keeping on that one for everybody. All right. As far as business, I have nothing further except for ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion
adjourned by Mr. Khan. He's pretty quick on that one.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going for a record. By the time my term expires, I wanted to have.
A second.
Seconded by Ms. Shenfield. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, we'll adjourn the meeting at my glasses 10:03 p.m. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everybody.
Yeah. I shouldn't have said I was going for a record because now Chris is going to spoil it for me.
Yeah,
Chris.